You still have to swipe through because we cover 2 pages.
We're live. We're live.
Thank
Yep,
you.
I saw that.
All
Does
right.
that help, Myron?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order for Tuesday, August 25th at 8:30. I would like to mention that at about 9:29, alarm will go off on my iPhone, and that will give the signal that we will stop and start a special kind of hearing, public hearing, it's called, on proposed fee changes. And that will be done by Auditor Powers. So with that, I would like to start the meeting with our statements regarding virtual or telephone board meetings. These are according to state statute dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 1, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12. Number 2, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered by today's meeting. Number 3, we have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Have it ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Number 4, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for County Auditor Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicken, County Administrator Rogers, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the Cook County boardroom at the Cook County Courthouse. Number 5, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. With that, would you please join me stating the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's look at the adjustments to the agenda. Is there anything that should be adjusted before we start the meeting? Please try to indicate that to me with a hand up or vocalize it. Okay, we have none. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Thank you. And a support.
Storlie, support.
Okay, thank you. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim is aye. Thank you. So we'll look at public comment period next. Is there any statements that have been received by our administrator, or is there anyone there at the courthouse today that would like to make a public comment?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no one here, but I do have 2 comments to read.
Okay, thank you. If you'd go ahead with that, please.
To the County Administrators Interview Committee. One question that is important to ask the candidates is what experience they have had with county extension and if the candidates think it's an essential service. Our extension office currently has been a vital part of this community, thanks to Diane Booth, who heads the office. She talks to hundreds of people each year about their yards, gardens, trees, and landscaping. She also makes innumerable site visits and offers lots of classes and workshops, which are well attended. She's improved the Master Gardener program here and encouraging young gardeners to participate. making it a vital part of our agricultural community in the county. And she co-hosts the monthly Northern Gardening Program on WTIP, offering expert local and regional advice to listeners on a wide range of topics. She has written an incredible number of successful grants, which have resulted, for example, in badly needed new warming house, as well as playgrounds for children of every age at the community center. She's also supported local entrepreneurs and young farmers in creative ways. She was founder of the Northwoods Food Project, a not-for-profit that seeks to establish sustainable agriculture in Cook County, and has been instrumental in setting up 3 community gardens in Grand Marais, including the one behind the community center, which currently has 24 raised beds for gardeners. There is a waiting list. These are only a few of the projects that she has supported and developed in the past 5 years, and county residents depend on her expertise. I would hope that the new county administrator understands the importance of maintaining a strong and vigorous county extension service for everyone. Diane will be retiring at some point, and it would be good if the new administrator understood the need to have a local extension office here. Thank you for considering my request. Joan Farnham is on the Board of Trustees for the Community Center, as well as co-host of the Northern Gardening on WTIP with Diane. She's also on the board of the Northwoods Food Project, and she's a community garden manager and gardener. The second letter is from Arvis Thompson, and this was to the commissioners, to the interim administrator, and it was also recently published in the Cook County News Herald. I'm asking a question in the most public way I can because it needs a quick answer, and I wonder why the answer hasn't already been provided. Who will represent District 1 from August 21st when Bobby Deschamps leaves until March 1st, 2021, when a new commissioner is to be seated? That's 7 months of no voice, let alone how many months before a new person can get up to speed. No voice on hiring or building, no voice in budget setting, no voice for too long in any year. A special election is slated for February 2021 for this seat. A regular election will be November. 2 commissioner districts are on the November ballot. Now, why can't District 1 also be on that ballot? Special elections cost extra money. Anyone want to guess that cost? $1,500, question mark. Why isn't someone appointed interim commissioner? Aren't you commissioners also concerned that a district will basically be left high and dry? Do you not want or need input from the East? Are you planning on being extra sensitive with all your ears and past experience in assuring District 1 that they won't be forgotten or neglected? The potential for absent representation seems great enough that this 1/5 of the county could or should shut down what you do for the next year. And so you say, well, appointing someone as interim isn't much better. After all, what are they going to know? To which I suggest they are at least interested in trying, and that's all any of us can do. So why can't we expedite the process and get in sync with what is already scheduled to take place? Guess that's more than one question. Arvis Thompson, District 1.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go to the consent agenda items. Are there any items that a commissioner would want to have pulled? Commissioner Doo-Kirk, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Rena, did you answer that letter? You don't have to say any response on here, but just did someone answer her questions?
No, I don't think they did.
Okay, it'd be nice if someone would answer those. I know they've been answered before when this position was vacated. The same question was asked. And Brady did touch on it during one of our meetings when we wanted to have it coincide with the other elections, but obviously it was missed. And then the 2 items on the consent agenda, I don't want to pull them, but I just want to make special note. One is to welcome Eric Robley, and 2, Joe Zallar started when I was a dispatcher at law enforcement, and it's a huge loss to our law enforcement community for him to be moving, and it's also a loss to Sawtooth Mountain Clinic that his wife is also moving on. And so to lose a family with that much impact on our community with children is more than a consent agenda to me. So that's all I wanted. There's no need to remove them. I just wanted to make note. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Doo-Kirk. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion then to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk, thank you. Support?
Support, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storlie, I saw aye, but your audio is not on.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
and Commissioner Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously. We will move to item number 4, Emergency Operations Command Update. And I believe we have Grace Ganager with us and Mike Keyport. And we usually start with Grace. So would you be willing to start, Grace?
Absolutely. So in the past 3 weeks, since I last gave an update to the board on August 4th, the number of COVID-19 cases in Minnesota rose by 13,733. In Cook County, our cases have gone from 2 to 6. At a state level, much of the response these past 3 weeks has focused on supporting schools, both K-12 and also higher education, as they make decisions regarding returning to the school year. Locally, our response efforts in these past 3 weeks include both of our COVID-19 health educators staff who were introduced to the board last meeting, Andrea Tofty and Maggie Farshman. I believe this was actually the PHHS board. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Both Andrea and Maggie are in their last stage of training in on case investigation and contact tracing. This involves shadowing staff either locally or at MDH, and is followed by being shadowed by more experienced staff. Kristen Diaruta-Wharton has been leading the training process for case investigation and contact tracing for our new staff. Andrea Tofty is also working on a frequently asked question document for local employees, similar to what public health has created for local employers, and that's based on feedback we've been getting from the community. Jody Turvo-Roberts, in her role as the school liaison, and myself, we've begun reviewing preparedness plans for schools in the area, as well as for extracurricular activities, using the MDH public health guidelines as a template. Jody has also taken the basic training for contact tracing, which will allow her to link area schools to our public health efforts when the need for contact tracing arises in a school setting. Sadie Sigford, in her role as a COVID-19 perinatal health educator, is sketching out the basics of virtual peer support groups for childbearing families and is planning to start piloting these within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Going back to the schools, Jody and I are holding weekly briefings on COVID-19 in the county with all area schools leaders, so that leadership from the schools are able to maintain situational awareness of the pandemic and use relevant information to guide their decision-making as they move between learning models throughout the year. Jody, myself, and leadership at both Sawtooth Mountain Clinic and North Shore Health have worked together to create uniform public health guidance on screening, contact tracing, testing, and when to stay home or return to school. We're now in a position to pass this guidance along with frequently asked questions for school-aged families to everyone in the community. Also, Elsa Lundy finished her AmeriCorps term of service with the Emergency Operations Center and gave a public presentation on her findings related to food access in Cook County during the pandemic. And in my notes, I will link to her presentation, which is archived on the county's YouTube channel. AEOA, with their CARES Act funding for the pandemic, is doing another food distribution event this Wednesday, August 26th, with drop sites at Grand Portage Community Center at 10 a.m. and the Grand Marais Food Shelf at 12:30 p.m. Andrea Orest, in her role as volunteer manager for the EOC, is working on getting Minnesota Responds shirts printed for local volunteers. The community support line, our behavioral health initiative for the response to the pandemic, we've printed magnets and business cards in an effort to continue to publicize this service throughout the community. We also put out a media release through the EOC publicizing the various economic assistance programs available through PHHS, including emergency cares funding for individuals and families. And finally, I'm working with Sawtooth Mountain Clinic and ISD 166 to find ways to improve our youth messaging and youth engagement efforts so that this coincides with the beginning of the school year. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Grace, I would just like to compliment and thank you for your interview this morning that I listened to, and dealing with, racial inequity with public health. And one of the takeaways that I need to remind myself of as well is when you stated that there is a relationship between economic inequity as well as racial. And I think that's something that's very important to consider, that when we look at these issues, that is also a big factor. So thank you for that. With that, any questions or comments? I'll go by roll call. Commissioner Mills.
I don't have any questions or comments aside from thanking you, Grace, for the update and your continued work while we're going through this.
Okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
No questions. Thank you, Grace.
Commissioner Storlie.
No questions. Just thank you again, Grace, for all you're doing, and much appreciation for your efforts and working with people in the community.
Okay, then we'll go to Mike Keyport. Are you still with us, Mike? I know you've got some activity going on there.
Yeah, I'm here, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, community members. They did get the fire under control there down Tofty Way.
Good.
Good.
The EOC here in Cook County remains operational. I continue to meet state and regionally. Regionally, we did have I won't give the agencies, but we did have a firefighter within the region test positive, and we had a deputy within the region, sheriff's deputy, test positive. Both of these cases, these individuals had 0 symptoms. The only reason it was caught, the firefighter, was a routine test. The deputy was tested for a different reason. The good side of this is that both of these agencies had good enough safety protocols in place that they tested everybody that was in contact with these folks. And as of last Thursday, and I haven't heard anything since, there was no further positive cases. So that tells us that the safety measures that we all complain about, but we do because we need to, are working. Grace mentioned our schools. All the schools in the state of Minnesota are getting a share of PPE to include masks, shields, a couple other things I can't remember right now. It's not a ton of stuff. It's based on case count in your county. So our 3 charter schools and our independent school district will all receive these. The downfall to this is that the state is sending them to the regional offices. The regional office for us in Cook County is Virginia, Minnesota, not real convenient for us. I chose to have Jim Weenan next week go pick up these supplies for our schools because it'll be paid for by FEMA. Pays for any mileage for any supplies we need within the county, and I just thought that would be a goodwill gesture. There is some more bulk hand sanitizer, probably with only the cost of getting it to Cook County. I don't have it in front of me. I don't have all the logistics of it, but I brought it up at our briefing, EOC briefing last week, and the consensus was that we don't know the future of our pandemic, that if we can get more hand sanitizer, it would likely be a good idea. So I'll continue to work on that. The Minnesota Department of Human Services. You spoke of our extension office earlier, wanted to distribute some test kits, COVID test kits, the typical swab tube, throughout the state. So they chose to use the extension offices just as a place of contact. So we received 250 test kits last week, just basically to have on hand, and it's at their discretion. So if myself or Diane get a call and say so-and-so is coming to pick up a box of 50 test kits, then they're just here just in case, if you will. So looking ahead, you know, as emergency managers do, we're winding down on the summer, but we'll need to start talking about the winter sports, you know, namely the ski hill and other winter sports upcoming. The COVID doesn't, you know, COVID doesn't discriminate. As I said, we have a event going on right now. There has been car crashes and house fires and other events throughout our county, so we have to continue to work on that stuff. But would like to look ahead here for on to winter and fall. Lastly, and most exciting, well, I don't know if it's most exciting, but the Association of Minnesota Emergency Managers, I believe I mentioned, typically has a fall conference that was canceled. They did choose, however, they do annual various types of awards. The biggie being Emergency Management Director of the Year. BJ Colstead from Lake County was nominated by quite a number of us, and she did receive that Director of the Year award. So that was pretty cool. I bring that up also because BJ Colstead's last day is next Monday, August 31st. We have an agreement with Lake County that if either one of us are on vacation or whatever, we back each other up. They have selected a new Lake County emergency manager. He's from out of state. He likely won't start till mid to late September. So should something happen in Lake County, I'll be kind of backing them up in the interim. I think that's my list for you folks today.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and thanks for all you do. It's just before we started the meeting, just hearing the radio and so forth, we all forget that you're listening all the time and on call all the time, and not just dealing with the COVID thing, but all emergency situations. So thank you very much for being with us, and it's a really a good tribute to our neighbor in Lake County, PJ Colstead, for her work and the work of the area. So with that, any questions or comments for our Emergency Management Director, Commissioner Storlie?
No questions. Comment is always thanks, Mike, for everything that you're involved in and working with other people and working with all of us in Cook County.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Well, Mike, I'm really glad that you're not busy so you can handle Lake County too. That's a great thing for you to do. Too bad we didn't hire that extra shared emergency manager, but thank you for continuing to take on more balls and continue to juggle them.
Thank you. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mike, for the update. Yeah, I had a similar question or on topic of Lake County's emergency management, and as they go through that transition, it is great to have you in your position to back them up. I was wondering if you knew a little bit more about their transition plan and if BJ would still be around for a while to kind of help them along, or what that situation is going to look like,
That,
considering it affects us, you know.
right, that was BJ's hope, that they would get somebody hired before she actually left. That did not happen. BJ did her, in her words, she's got Post-it notes and everything in her entire office as to where is what and all the regional contacts and such. The only thing I can say about the gentleman is he is out of state. The state he is coming from is way backlogged on their background check abilities. That's what's holding it up. So as soon as they get a clear background check, then he'll be onboarded. And so that's why they're expecting middle to late September right now, anyway.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Powers.
Yeah, would you like to hear a response regarding the vacancy in District 1? Since that was,
If you want to do that, could you do that when, well, okay.
I can.
Chair, I guess, why don't we just do it right now? We'll just change
Very
the
quick-
agenda a little bit.
very
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
very quickly, it's in state statute. If a vacancy is longer than a year, then you must schedule a special election. You did not have the option to appoint, number one. And number two, then the dates of the special election are set in statute. The very fastest we could do it was to schedule a primary, if there was a primary, on November 3rd. And then the next available date in the state statutes was the second Tuesday in February. I attempted to cut it short in case we didn't have a primary, but that's not allowed. You have to schedule the entire election as though you were going to have a primary. That was made very clear. We had no other choice. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you. I do remember that. Commissioner Mills, got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Brady, for that reminder. I know you updated us previously on this, and so we were in the know. I just want to make sure that concerned citizens who aren't either watching this video or the previous meeting are communicated with directly, just so we can cover our concerns and bases. That's
Yeah,
all.
I've had another call that I'll be returning on that same question. So
Okay, so Brady, you will be following up with the public comment person this morning.
yeah, I will with her also. There was another person that also called with that question.
Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
very good. We'll go to number 6, Sheriff. We're going to be looking at the 2021 budget proposal. Welcome, Sheriff Patty Eliason. I believe you're with us. I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Board. Good morning, Administrator Rogers. As far as my budget goes, there's one large change which I'm proposing, and that's the addition of another sheriff's technician to assist Melissa in her duties. And she has quite a large job, and her duties just seem to get added onto as time goes by. So I've done up a justification letter and a proposal for this position. And I believe everybody has that.
Yes.
Okay. So in the first paragraph, you can see many of the things which Melissa does, and all of them are essential functions of the sheriff's office, from getting reports to the county attorney's office to managing grants, invoicing, billing. She does all of our civil process, all of the gun permits, the permits to carry, as well as administrating with Chief Deputy Sandstrom our evidence room and intake and release of all evidence for court cases or the intake when someone is taken into custody on one of our cases. Oh, she does the background checks. She does some of the audits for the state of Minnesota, as well as when we implemented our new records management and jail management system. Her, along with Lindsay Milkey, were very integral in not only getting that going, but keeping it going right now and assisting the deputies and dispatchers if there's any questions or any type of trouble. So that, when you wrap it all up into a nice neat little ball, it's quite overwhelming for one person right now. And so that is the basis for this proposal. And you can see under budget impact, in 2019 and 2020, we created a annualized fund to start putting money aside to replace our armor radios, which are nearing the end of their lives. They're still working, but we are going to get to a place where we need to start replacing them. We were putting away $60,000 a year for that. So right now we have $120,000, which is carried over each year for this purpose. Since the time that was enacted by the board, we have been given clearance with the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to allow the purchase of armor radios now with our Stone Garden grants. So that was a huge change for us and a great benefit to us, that we can start using that money for replacement of armor radios, which we have begun doing, especially in our squad cars. As we turn the squad cars over, we are replacing our mobile units in the squad cars. The handhelds are still limping along, I guess we could say. But we plan to start replacing those with Stone Garden money, grant money. And we had a bailiff retire, Judy Sievertson. We had her retire, and I would plan on using some of that salary to complement the salary for the new sheriff's technician. And to replace the bailiff, our jail administrator, Gary Fagerman, has agreed to take up bailiff duties during court days. We will still have a deputy downstairs doing the screening, but Gary will be in the courtroom. And as the judge likes one person in there. He likes the constant of one person. So Gary has agreed to do that. So using those monies, the $60,000 for what we were putting away for armor radios, and the salary for the bailiff position, which came to approximately $17,000, just a little over $17,000. Those would be the monies in the budget which I would use for the salary and benefits for the sheriff's technician. So I guess with that, if I would answer any questions that anybody has, and we can go from there.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we'll start with sort of a roll call, I guess, for any questions or comments. So everyone has an opportunity to comment, and this is not a decision-making one, but definitely for information. I think to start it off, I do appreciate your sort of flexibility in looking how to resolve some issues with current budget constraints. And so there's maybe questions about the future of those funds, but I think it's a really good way to approach what we should be doing at this period of time. So thank you for that. I think it's important to try to be creative sometime to better meet the needs of our services in delivery. So thank you. We'll start with any questions, Commissioner Mills, or comments that you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff Eliason. I too really appreciate you looking at the needs of the department and how we can shift things around as money becomes available or needs change. Do you have any indication if the Stone Garden funds it's okay to use them in the foreseeable future, or is this just a short-term use of those funds for the radios, or I guess maybe we're not in a position to know that, but that's my first question.
Sure. The Stone Garden funds have been pretty solid. I mean, we've been utilizing them for, oh wow, probably 15 or more years now. And yeah, it's a very solid grant, and and we go on 2 and 3 year cycles. So we will be getting a new cycle with that. So we would have that money for, I think we're at the end of our 2020 grant. We would be, or 2019 grant, I'm sorry, we'd be starting our 2020 grant in September. And then after that, we would be starting into another 3 year cycle in 2021.
Thank you. I guess I was more curious about being able to use it for the armor radio, if that change is likely to last, or if that was just a special circumstance situation.
No, it wasn't a special circumstance. The grant, as it evolves, they add more and more pieces of equipment that we can buy with it. So this is something new, and I don't see it, especially with the way communications are needed these days. I don't see that. I don't see the Customs and Border Protection taking that out of the grant at any time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then I don't want to stir the pot, but I'm just curious. I mean, I know your department is strapped, and we're going to be having some change in staff. Just curious on the jail side of things, with more responsibilities put on the jail administrator, if just how that dynamic is going to be working, and if we have any further perspective on what our needs will be in the in the future here on that area.
Currently, the workload on the jail administrator will allow him to do the bailiff duties. And to be quite honest, that has a lot to do with the pandemic we're in right now, because we are just not housing a lot of people in jail. The people that we don't have to keep in jail, we are not keeping in jail. So, I don't know what 3 or 4 years down the line looks like, but in the near future, I don't see that changing much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all your work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We'll go to Commissioner Storlie.
Thank you. And thank you, Pat, for recognizing that Melissa needed some help. And when I first heard about Stone Garden many years ago, being a gardener, I thought, well, that's where we live. We have a lot of stones in our garden, but it wasn't that type of a description. So it's a wonderful fund, and I know you have managed it very well. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Storlie. Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
So for the jail administration, are we going to redo the job description or do an out of class? Do we foresee, I mean, we should check and see if there's a change in pay for that, for the bailiff portion?
We have had the jail administrator do bailiff. I mean, when Ben Halbert was a jail administrator, he did a lot of bailiff work. He did a lot of transport work too. It's just part of some of their job duties.
Okay. And then since we didn't upgrade, fix, repair, do the jail expansion, where exactly are you gonna put this itty bitty tiny person?
Melissa has agreed and to share her office. We would just move another desk in there and move one of the file cabinets out of there for now. And for continuity, it would be best if that person and Melissa shared the same office.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So it all sounds good. We'll see how it shakes out. as always, a big thank you to Melissa. She carries a lot of burdens on her shoulders and she just keeps piling them on like everybody else does. So I think this has been a long time coming for her. And so we obviously don't want to lose her as an employee with the added burdens because she is amazing. So thank you.
She is.
Okay. Yeah, and, Sheriff Eliason, I would just like to say, and I think I speak for the board, at least as board chair, a special thanks to you and your department for the service that you provide to our county. It's amazing what you get done with the staffing that you have and some of the responsibilities and remoteness, and a special thanks for how you do your work and looking at it as community service as well as enforcement. So thank you so much for that. And please pass that on to your staff.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to check my clock here. We still got some time, so we'll move on to the Highway Department. And we have with us a special new person. Robert is with us, I think, this morning, and welcome to our county and welcome to your important position. But I think I see, Rena, you got your hand up, so are we?
I do. I wanted to also take a minute before we did the highway budget and
Okay,
introduce our two new people at the highway department.
okay, very good. I was going to do that, but you do it, please. Thank you.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure you knew that Josh was on as well.
Oh,
So-
I didn't catch him. I'm sorry. I don't see him on my screen.
So, I think it would be awesome if they could both just introduce themselves a little bit. So
Sure.
Josh, you want to just say hi and
Sure.
Tell-
Hi, hello,
Morning,
everyone.
Josh.
Hi.
tell us a
name-
little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Josh Dix, and I've been here for about 3.5 weeks now, starting at the Highway Department. It's been awesome. It's been a lot of learning. It's been a lot of traveling with Charlie to see all the roads in the county and kind of get to know what's going great and what we need to work on. Before that, I was working in the city of Roseville for 11 years in public works, in streets and stormwater. I was the foreman there for 6 of those years. I've got a lot of plowing experience. I've got a horticulture background as far as school, so I'm really interested in some of our erosion control issues and drainage issues. It sounds like is a real hot topic with all the water rushing down the hill. And originally I grew up in central Wisconsin. So what's kind of neat is I grew up in a really small town, this town of Rudolph that probably nobody will recognize. And then I moved to a really big city, and now I'm kind of moving to a place that seems to kind of combine both of those aspects. We've got a rural area with a lot of folks that visit from the city. So I'm really interested to see how that impacts my job too. But I'm really excited to be here, and it's been a great couple weeks already.
Okay, thank you and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
How about you, Robbie? You want to just say a few words before we get into the budget?
Sure. Sorry for hopping around between meetings, whereas I was actually talking with some folks about the Safe Routes to School project. So I really wanted to make sure I at least said hi to that before I came over here. But anyways, hello, everybody. I'm the new county engineer. My whole career has been down in Minneapolis and really briefly in Baltimore before I came out here. We went out there. My wife was pursuing a postdoctorate, and so out in Johns Hopkins there. So anyways, when we saw this opportunity, she pretty much said I'd be stupid if I didn't apply. So here we are. But it's been great so far. Everybody I've met's been wonderful, and I'm really excited to, follow up on a lot of the projects that we have going and to work with everybody here. And maybe I'll regret it, but my phone number is always open. So give me a call if there's an issue.
Okay, well, welcome. And thank you for joining our staff. And it's just a wonderful thing to see we're fully staffed. That's not happened in my duration as a county commissioner. And it's really going to be interesting to see how this works, because I know it's going to be going up and up and up and up. And it will be interesting to see how far we can go with our delivery system with
Absolutely.
these additions, but also want to also thank everyone in the highway department, and especially Lisa, who has been sort of holding a lot of things together in so many different ways. And so I would like to just comment that we've got about 14 minutes, and I assume, Lisa, you're going to get into the budget aspects of this presentation.
I am. I have a PowerPoint, which I am just sharing.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yes, and please understand that I will be interrupting you, and we'll more than likely have to, continue after the public hearing with your presentation. Okay?
All righty. Well, just wanted to say good morning and thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. And I'm just having a little problem with my other screen because of how Zoom is appearing. So if I can get that to minimize, I can see my notes. So just wanted to say good morning. Our Highway Department budget for 2021 totals $14.2 million, and that's an increase of about $5 million from 2020. This is a common occurrence, and that's due to the fluctuation in the size of the engineering projects budgeted from year to year. So as you can see, it's $14,250,088. We have a few key changes, as this slide shows. Our proposed budget has no levy increase despite a 15% projected reduction in state aid revenue, and that has come from MnDOT. They are updating us quarterly. Last I heard, it looked like about 13% reduction in gas tax revenues this year, but there are, of course, 5.5 months left or so, 4.5, I guess. It's later than I want to acknowledge, and we will see how that ends up at year end. We also have incorporated that 9.9% projected percent health increase in our health insurance premiums. And then you can see we have increased our calcium chloride budget as well. And we are projecting a use of $244,613 of our fund balance in order to maintain that 0% increase. We've got a brief summary of our projected expenses for 2021. Administration covers 3 salaries here in the office, as well as a host of miscellaneous expenses, including all of our engineering tech training. That's an odd note, and I mention it because that is a state aid requirement. At the end of the year, our miscellaneous engineering expenses are applied with using a formula across our engineering projects, and state aid believes strongly that those expenses should not be applied just to one year's project. So all of that falls into administration. I will be discussing projects and capital expenditures in detail in the slides coming up. So other quick notes show that engineering comprises the major section of our budget. As I mentioned earlier, it can vary from year to year depending on the size of the construction projects. And then, of course, we have shop. And our shop expenses include, I've got to just get down in my notes, our shop foreman and mechanic salaries, our equipment parts, our equipment fuel, all of our building maintenance and utilities. And of course, the equipment parts and the fuel comprise about half of that budget every year. And then work for others / AWC or authorized work contributions covers all of our department billables, including all of the fuel sold to our joint powers partners. And so that would be county cars, the law enforcement center, search and rescue, MnDOT, ISD 166, North Shore Hospital, and of course the airport. And so we've had that in place for almost 20 years now. So those are our major expense categories. You can see that the highway department budget has a number of revenue sources. There are 3 main ones: state aid construction, state aid maintenance, and then of course our transportation sales tax, which is 8.3 million. And then the levy is the 4th one at 2.25 million. And again, that is the same as our 2020 levy. So the 2021 budget shows 6 road and bridge projects under construction and 2 additional bridges heading into design. The first one is the Safe Routes to Schools Trail. The scope of this sidewalk project really morphed when we received that grant in 2019. That grant is $206,000. The other $41,200 will come from Muni state aid construction funds. And again, that is slated for construction next year. It needs to happen because of the grant timeframes. We have a number of bridges. This bridge has been in design for a couple of years, and that design actually changed significantly in the last 2 years. It was originally slated to be a single span concrete structure, but final design is for a timber bridge, and that is going to be funded through our transportation sales tax monies. And you can see the estimated cost of $800,000. Another bridge that's been in design is the Carlson Creek Bridge on Moose Valley Road. Preliminary recommendations are for a bottomless arch culvert. This will also be funded via TST. You can see the cost for that structure is significantly lower, less than half of the previous one. The Seagull Creek Bridge will be let in conjunction with at least one other project, the Larch Creek Culvert. Both projects are located on the Gunflint Trail, and we are hoping to do the advertisement at the end of this year in order to secure better prices for 2021 construction season. This and the Seagull Creek Bridge project, which is summarized here, are both on the upper part of the Gunflint Trail, of course, and the combined cost for the 2 of those will be $1.2 million, which will consume the bulk of our projected state aid allotment for 2021. And then, of course, there's the big one, County Road 45. The Highway Department has been reviewing the project schedule in light of 2 big parameters: funding and the bond lending potential through TST and the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The right-of-way phase is taking longer than expected with the consultant doing the work. And we have been discussing the best time frame, I guess, for doing a bond issuance. And given that there are some construction design issues that Engineer Hess would like to talk about with the public, we are discussing letting this project in 2022 instead of 2021. If that happens, there will be no impact to the levy because this is funded strictly through that TST bond issuance. So again, this is the one that's showing our engineering budget as being over 10 million. And at the end, Robbie can certainly answer some of your questions about this. He has been working quite a bit on this already in the last 2 weeks. Okay, then we have the 2 local bridge projects that I mentioned we hope to put into design. One is the Flute Reed River Bridge on North Road. The other one's on the Sawbill Trail. Kristen Foster had set aside some money for local bridge design, and we plan to use 100,000 of what's set aside along with money in this year's budget to get those 2 projects into design. Capital expenditures. As we discussed at other meetings, the Highway Department has extended its schedule for equipment replacement, trying to minimize impacts to the levy and to utilize each piece of equipment to its fullest. In the last 2 years, we have actually allocated $265,000 to equipment reserves and also finished paying off the 1 grader that we purchased on that 5-year lease in 2015. We do have some needs that are going to start hitting us. And so for 2021, we do have 3 proposed purchases. The first is a plow truck, and it would replace unit 5033, which is a 2003 Sterling LT with over 210,000 miles on it. It is currently our backup truck for one of our main trucks is down. The proposal is to sell that, put one of our older trucks into that backup position, and then put this on one of our regular routes. We have had a utility tractor in the budget for the last 2 years, and we've delayed that purchase because of ongoing conversations with the city of Grand Marais regarding most particularly sidewalk maintenance. After a lot of discussion this year, the recommendation is that we use that money for a wheel tire skid steer instead of a utility tractor, because that would provide for year-round use. It could be used on sidewalks in the winter, but also out on road projects then in the summer. Finally, in light of the extended equipment replacement schedule, our shop foreman, Steve Butts, has recommended that we extend the warranties on each of our graders as they sunset. The first one will expire in 2021. And so we have asked Ziegler Cat about that. They cannot give us a quote until shortly before it expires. But even if it is in that $20,000 to $25,000 range, as we assume for an extended, we're talking 5 to 7 years potentially, it would save us substantially, because just one major equipment or transmission glitch, major repair, can run $30,000 to $40,000. So those are our proposals for next year. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about personnel changes. As requested, there are no COLA or step increases in this budget. We have incorporated the health insurance premium. And I put this little caption up there because I wanted to remind everyone that while we had the maintenance supervisor position vacant, we had actually moved that money back over to gravel crushing, and that had gone from $150,000 to $232,000 for 2 years. Now that we have Josh, we are moving that money back to maintenance personnel. So that part of the maintenance budget shows an increase. We have 2 retirements this year, of course, Ike Kinderman and Charlie Sawyer. And due to hiring those positions at, of course, lower steps, we're going to save the amount shown on the screen. So that shows you that we have, in terms of personnel monies available, an additional $104,710 with the increases in wages and benefits due to just the steps done in 2020. And then, of course, health insurance, we would use about $83,350 of that. So we actually have some levy savings in our personnel area with the proposed budget.
Lisa, if the steps go forward, do you know what that cost is?
I gave it to Brady the other day. I can open a spreadsheet if you would like. I was just going to open it up for questions. If I remember right, I had a little tab here and it wasn't a significant difference. So let me find the email I sent to Brady and I will answer that question in just a moment. And I was really trying to hurry so we got through the presentation before 9:30. So if I rushed a little bit, I apologize, but I knew we could come back for questions then. So let me stop sharing my screen. I've got too many screens open. There we go. Okay, I will, unless Brady has that right in front of him, I will find that email that I sent to him. Here we go.
Auditor Powers, do you have that available?
I just found it.
Okay, thank you. Bring it up. We've got about a minute.
So if we have that 3% proposed, it would cost us an additional $54,248.10, because you also have the increase, you know, in terms of the FICA and everything that we have to pay.
Okay, and that's just for the, what about steps?
I was told no steps, just COLA. Do you want me to? I can do that and give that to Brady for a future meeting.
Yeah, because I think both options have been discussed. So,
So Commissioner Doo-Kirk, are you saying that you would want one then with just steps or with?
yep, just
Okay,
steps.
just steps and no COLA?
Yep,
Okay, I will do that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do in about 30 seconds or so is go to our public hearing on proposed fee increases. Then I would say right after that, we'll have a break of about 8 minutes or whatever, somewhere under 10 minutes. And then we'll continue with questions to the staff regarding this budget and any other information that you would like to share. Is that understood by everyone? Okay, So
Myron,
I'm
could we
going-
go to questions before break, just so Lisa and Rob can get back to work?
Is it that, I'll direct that to the staff. Would you prefer that?
I would defer to the commissioners, whatever works for you.
Whatever you guys like. We're here for you.
Okay.
Awesome. I would like you all to get back to work and not be interrupted.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
Let's see how long this fee fee proposal for the public hearing takes. And with that, we're going to stop and go to the public hearing. I'd like to turn it over to Auditor Powers, and then we'll see how long that takes. And then we'll see if we take a break then, or if we will just continue with this discussion. Okay. Auditor Powers, are you ready?
Mr. Chair, yes. So these public hearing has to occur before the board can vote on fee changes. 2 departments submitted requests for changes. I'll start with the auditor's office. We have a fee for bond issue information requests. For example, the city is bonding the hospital, the school, and then entities that work with them will ask us for various types of tax market value information. And this fee is not changed in over 15 years. The request is to change that fee from $150 to $250. The average time it takes to put that together, it does not cover all costs, but this will get it closer. So I would stop there in case there are any questions regarding that fee.
Okay, any questions of the commissioners? Commissioner Mills, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Brady. Do you have an idea of what it would cost to cover the expense?
It varies, and it's going to vary. It varies by the request. It varies by the firm that asks the specific questions. They ask for them sometimes in different ways. So it's gonna be in that $250 to $300 probably, maybe a little higher. This is very close to other county fees. We checked with counties around the state that responded, so it's very close to others. I expect in the future it'll go down because MSIS, who does our tax system, is working on a something that will produce a report, a series of reports that fit most of these, because most of them are fairly similar. And once that happens, I'm sure we'll be looking to reduce this. But until it does, this is really a 15-year update.
Thank you.
Okay, any others on this part of it?
Okay, then the second one is an e-check refused payment fee. This is very similar to an NSF that you get on a check. So in this case, people are going online to pay for things with electronic checks, and their account may get rejected either because they've misentered or they have insufficient funds. And we seem to be seeing repeats from the same people. Either they're not taking the care and the time. It takes almost as much time and effort to then undo the receipt of the fees and then make contact, etc. So it's very similar to an NSF. The NSF charge is $30. Kelly thought it was slightly less of a burden than an NSF, so we're asking to create that fee for $25. Any questions on that one?
Okay, commissioners, would you raise your hand? Okay. Go ahead.
That's for the auditor's office. Then the land services, I don't know if Tim is there to speak to this.
Yes, he is. Tim?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair and Administrator and all. Yes, we do have a few that we just want to adjust, kind of in the same category that Brady was talking about earlier. Is the land use permit fee categories hasn't changed in about 15 years or so. And frankly, there are several categories. We do land use permits by size of the structure. And frankly, we're in the position as well as, because of our economies of scale and numbers of permits that we do and the size of county that we have, we couldn't charge enough to recover the cost of what it is that we incur for processing the permits. So we run that balance. We want to try to strike a balance between having each individual project owner bear as much of the responsibility to the permit as possible, but still being able to keep the permit costs as low as possible to encourage participation in the permitting process, so people will come in and get those permits. So each of those categories, we had increased them back in 2005-06 by $50 a category, and this would be the same process, just raising each category by by $50, and then the after the fact fees for each of those categories has been historically twice the amount of the permit fees. So we would go from currently the $100 for the lowest permit fee to $150, going from $200 for the after the fact fee to $300, and on up to $400 being the highest category, the most expensive permit category, with $800 being the after the fact fee for that. And I'll stop at this category and see if anybody has any questions with regards to the land use permit fees.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Mills, got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tim. I appreciate your work and trying to find that balance. I wrestle with it a little bit myself, just because one of the most common complaints I hear about as a commissioner is those permit fees, those land use permit fees, and it seems to me that it's a little bit of a regressive burden, or it can be. And so I really do appreciate you trying to find that balance and trying to make it all work out. I'm not in it deep enough to know anything about that, and really do respect and trust your judgment there. And we do need to stay on top of that and try to make it fair. So thank you for your work there.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Nelson? Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Just a reminder that the rules were changed. Tim, help me get this language correctly. The Planning Commission on an after the fact fee has the ability to waive some or part of it based on the situation. So there is some relief to people. And the discussions with the Planning Commission also were basing those fees on the value of the project. So we've had discussions on the Planning Commission, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Doo-Kirk and Mr. Chair. Actually, we went through a couple changes by ordinance allowing certain after the fact fees to be waived by the Planning Commission, and then also some to be waived administratively from our department when we're looking for enforcement, ways to get enforcement without having to get terribly punitive about it. We can do some, I don't want to call it horse trading, but we can waive certain fees to render or gain compliance with that. And that has worked fairly well. And so, yeah, it is tough to strike that balance, to know, how much that fee would be, because the costs are incurred to the county no matter what. We do have to review the permits. So it's either out of the general tax fund that the taxpayers incur the cost, or the project proposers themselves. So in looking at it regionally and statewide, we're on the low end of the amount of the permit fees in each category.
Okay, Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Tim. I was wondering if it might be helpful to do kind of a community connections piece to try to explain how we get to that balance and some of the costs involved and the time it takes and that sort of thing, just to get just to try to bring it to the public a little bit more about the reasons behind them, because like I said, that is one of the more common complaints I hear about, and I know there are good reasons, and it would be good that more people could understand that too. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mills. Yeah, I can put that together, and I realize that there are very legitimate concerns and thoughts on all sides of this particular issue. And I know there are some that don't want any permit fees whatsoever. Well, as I said, the costs are incurred. It's just a matter of how they're distributed. So yeah, I can work on that. So if there aren't any other questions with regards to the land use fees, there's another fee that we want to adjust, and that is the existing fee for the administrative subdivision process. And we've had that set at $200 for a number of years, and really the complexity of the evaluation and analysis that has to be done with regards to that process. The proposal is just to bring it up to $500 for the administrative subdivision, understanding some of that cost can be incurred in or absorbed in if it's a property sale or whatever the case may be. So that's just a proposed amendment to bring it a little bit closer again to what the cost of the analysis would be. We're looking at wetlands delineations and all of this stuff. So that's at least the rationale behind that. So I'll entertain any questions for that, because the next two fees are going to be new proposed fees. So are any questions on the administrative subdivision fee?
Okay, none. I don't see any. So go ahead, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things when we put together the vacation rental ordinance and the fee structure for that, we just hadn't plugged in an after the fact fee, and we didn't realize that until we were kind of further down the road. We're still at a point in time right now where this is the first full year in which we're implementing that program. We've had fairly good compliance for it, and understanding that there's been a lot of hesitancy from folks as to wondering whether they were going to actually participate, whether they were going to do vacation rentals or not. So we don't know if people coming in are actually just dragging their feet to get their license, or if they are actually finally made that decision to do it. So we're given the benefit of the doubt across the board. So it's not so much of a big deal right now, but going forward, we just want to have that after the fact fee established for the vacation rental permit. The fee for the license is $200. So we're proposing the after the fact fee to be an additional $300, which the after the fact fees for a lot of our categories are $300. So it kind of falls in line with the rest of a lot of the other after the fact fees we have. And then the other fee is also, we had put together the tower ordinance a long time ago, and we identified a specific permit, a construction permit, administrative construction permit for a tower, and we had never really established a fee. We hadn't really looked at that. So now that it's coming up, we just want to be able to establish a fee that goes with that permit, and are proposing $300 for that as the permit fee for tower construction. And that's it.
Okay, questions on that one, Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tim. As far as the tower is concerned, that goes for any tower, if it's residential, if it's a water tower, a windmill or anything like that, or we're talking just the cell towers, the bigger ones?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mills, there are categories within the tower ordinance that identifies what towers. Some towers don't need permits at all. Some towers need conditional use permits. So they're all into these categories. This is just the administrative construction permit for those that would need a permit that are above that would be exempted, and below that category, which has a conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on those issues? Back, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Is there anyone besides the county building towers?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Doo-Kirk, there have been in the past. And so those kinds of things ebb and flow. I mean, it was really a big issue many years ago. And then it stopped being an issue, and then it can be an issue now. We've participated and we've helped facilitate towers just because of the armor build out and everything like that, but it is possible.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not shuffling coconuts from one office to another.
We like coconuts.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll go back to Mr. Powers, our auditor, for a wrap up of this, or of any other issues that we need to attend.
Yeah, so the next step, no questions from the public, no changes proposed. We just ask for a motion to approve the requested fee changes.
Okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
So this is kind of odd. This is our first public hearing during COVID. So normally we have a public hearing, and normally during fee changes, we don't have any public comment, but I'm just wondering if we hold our final vote until our next board meeting, or if that's not okay with a public hearing, because we have to hear testimony today. We can't hear testimony later. And maybe that's a Molly Hicken question.
Auditor Powers or Attorney Hicken?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the answer to that.
Mr. Chair, I think that with the notice that went out on this public hearing and the Zoom link that was published, anybody who wished to provide comment or testimony had that opportunity at today's hearing, and we can close the record and vote.
Okay, very good. So I'll entertain a motion to approve these fee proposals.
Don't we have to open it for public comment first?
Attorney Hicken,
The
I
public-
think Mr. Powers, is there any
That was-
public comment that you've received?
I'm sorry, I've not received any comment, and the public hearing was for public comment. So we just did that.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, you would just want to make a final call to see if anybody is
Okay.
present and wishes to provide comment or testimony before you close.
I just did, and I'll say it again. Is there anyone that wants to make any public comment? Please call, I guess, or indicate on Zoom. Rena?
I would just say that I am in the commissioner's room in the public space. So if somebody wanted to come, I would just bring them right to my
Right.
seat. There's no
Okay.
one.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to approve these proposed fee increases.
So moved, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Okay, support.
Support Commissioner Storlie.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim, aye. Passes. Okay, we're at 9:48. Let's take a 7-minute break, and then we'll get back to the Highway Department. It seems to be a natural time to do that. Is 7 minutes enough, or do you want to, anyone need any more than that? We'll reconvene at 9:55. Thank you. Okay, we will get back together. Let's see if we got everyone.
Here.
Yes, I see Commissioner Storlie. I see Commissioner Mills. I see Commissioner Doo-Kirk, and I think we got Administrator Rogers coming, hopefully. There. We got Bev or Stacy. Just wait for Administrator Rogers. We'll get started.
Mr. Chair, we have the highway department sitting on standby for
yes.
us. Could we like
Yep,
get back to them so they can?
Yep, thank you. Yes, I'm just giving it a minute here, and here she comes. Okay, we will be back to the agenda with the highway department budget and the proposal, and so I think at this point in time we will open it up to questions unless anyone from the highway department has some further statements that we should consider before we open it up for questions, and I'll call on each commissioner individually for that.
This is Lisa. I was running numbers for Commissioner Doo-Kirk, just adding steps, no COLA. And that would cost us just over $9,900 over the no COLA, no steps.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Mills. Questions, comments in regards to the proposed budget for the highway department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Lisa, for the presentation. Very well done. Just curious about using the fund balance. A lot of uncertainty in the years ahead here, and I greatly appreciate the hard work that the department's done in working towards the zero levy increase. My concern would be if we use that fund balance or some of the fund balance now, is this going to put us in a place where we're going to want to make that up in the not too distant future, or is the fund balance healthy enough there with the highway department that that we can do this at this point, even with the uncertainty ahead?
Okay, who would like to address that?
Robbie, would you like me to address it based on our fund balance at the end of 2019?
I would greatly appreciate it if you would address that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks to the work of former engineer Kristen Foster, the highway department's fund balance is in great standing. It's much healthier than it has been in a few, well, actually since I started. So at the end of 2019, our total fund balance is 2.2 million. Statutorily, we have to allocate or set aside the year-end total for inventory value. So about 600,000 of that is set aside for our equipment reserves, or I mean inventory reserves in case anything were to happen. And then we have some money set aside for our equipment reserves and our local bridge project reserves, and then the carryover for the utility tractor that we didn't spend. And I should say, actually, I misspoke. It's 2.2 million plus the 600,000 we have set aside for inventory. I misspoke. So our undesignated fund balance is 1.7 million at the end of 2019, which, as I said, is the best we've seen it. Now, when we talk about using fund balance, the great majority of that is actually that 260, or a good part of it is that 265,000 that we had set aside for equipment reserves. So we are planning to use some of that was specially set aside for equipment. And realistically, yes, we are going to have to, hopefully when we get back to normal financial status, plan to set aside again for equipment reserves. So we had done that 150,000 one year and 105,000 another year. And if we had a moderate levy increase and all other things being equal, we would hopefully be able to do that in the future years.
Okay, Commissioner Mills, any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
So just, I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly. The current budget proposal uses about 270,000 from the fund balance. And what you were saying is in previous years, we've put aside $150,000 or $105,000 to build up that fund balance.
Just for equipment purchase alone. So in that 2.2 million of fund balance we have at the end of the year, 265,000 was set aside just for equipment if we need to purchase equipment. We have over 200,000 set aside just for bridges. And those are some special fund categories we've set up under Engineer Foster. So with a projection of $244,000 worth of fund balance, 100,000 of that would be out of that local bridge fund, and then the balance would come out of that equipment reserves at this point, because we are increasing our proposed equipment expenses significantly in 2021. We were at 200,000, not even, we were at 155,000 about last year, and we're at 373,000 in 2021 with no levy increase, because we do need to start addressing some of our equipment issues.
Okay, so you do understand my concern and my forward looking, and what with this budget proposal, you feel like that is a responsible way to go at this time, and that and the hope is, even with the uncertainty of the future, that this won't put us in a worse position in the future for a stabilizing right now.
No, it won't. And Commissioner Mills, before you started, we actually used 1 year about $700,000 of our fund balance at board recommendation due to some stringent financial times, and we took our fund balance almost down to nothing.
Yeah,
So,
that's my concern. I'm not a fan of that strategy, and I recognize in certain situations, such as a pandemic, that we need to dip in. But this pandemic, it's not clear how long it will last, and so I want to, while the going is all right for us now, I want to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for harder times ahead.
We are, and we budgeted pretty strictly with Mike Tardy and Kristen Foster, and now with Robbie here, we, I think, are in good stead moving forward, all good financial minds. So I feel really good.
Thank you very much. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I think any other questions or comments? I would just like to interject too, that I think based upon the circumstances and so forth, by just trying to keep a zero increase in this department by going to a reserve funding is being, acting very, very cautiously in a financial way as well. So that's what budget reserves are for, but they should be there always in the future. And we thank you for your comments. Going forward, it's necessary, but we're in a sort of a situation where you've got to look at both ends of it and how to get through it. Any other questions or comments for our highway department? Commissioner Doo-Kirk has got your hand up.
Lisa, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I remember the day when it was $99. I won't forget that.
It was.
And Robbie, you are one lucky duck for what you're walking into. So please understand that trust what Lisa says. She knows what's going on. She's putting a lot of hard work.
I've been very fortunate. Engineer Foster, Interim Department Head Mike Tardy are just great minds, and it was such a delight to work with them on the financial components. And Robbie already is up to speed and asking questions, and it's going to be good. And one of the things I do want to remind everyone is that even with no levy increase, we did increase the calcium chloride budget by 30,000, understanding that we're probably going to see another major price increase next year. And if we want to maybe even increase it slightly if the prices don't escalate too much, we do have the option to let the public know during the pandemic. That's not something that we think we can do either at all or to that extent. So that's $30,000 of new expense built in, just to keep that in mind. It's not something I would recommend touching if we don't have to, but that is there. That is a price increase.
Yeah, and going back in your report to the bridge on 46, that's a big nod to Kristen and continued nod to Mr. Tardy and to you with crunching numbers that bridge is going to be done to the desire of the citizens. Even though the cost is almost double, it's not a huge impact on the citizens as a whole. And that is really, really a very important historic bridge that needs to be resolved. And so thank you all for the work on that. And when I leave, please don't mess that bridge up. It is next to my house.
Well, Robbie and Auditor-Treasurer Powers and one of the staff persons in the auditor's office met last week, and we talked about the TST fund at length. And even if we aren't bonding for County Road 45 yet before the 2021 construction season, our cash balance in the TST fund is part of what we were going to leverage for those two bridges. So we should be able to move forward.
Okay, Commissioner Storlie.
Thank you. And Lisa, I just feel so good today that I'm just tickled pink for what you've done. Explaining the use of the fund balance, it's not easy, but sometimes it is useful. And I know you're going to keep track of everything in the future on that. And Robbie, do you like to be called Robbie or Robert?
We can go with Robbie. We're friends now, so that's fine.
Okay, we're friends. Okay. Very good, very good. And Lisa, that picture behind you, have you read the Farmer's Almanac by chance?
No, actually, that's on the cover of our 2019 annual report. And I just thought during the quote dog days of summer, such as we get up here, it might be kind of fun. Just to remind everyone of what's coming.
That's coming, yes. Thanks again for what you've done and appreciate all your hard work.
Commissioner Mills, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had another question, and I don't know that any direction has been taken with this. Kristen, before she left, had mentioned that we could maybe work towards this in the upcoming years, but I've had some concerns regarding the plowing of some of the Forest Service recreation sites, ski trailheads and such. Has there been any work done, or is that in the works there? And any budgeting for that? I guess there has been historically, but not recent history.
Off the top of my head, I'll be honest with you, no. But if that's something, I mean, let's talk about it some more, and we can get, our new maintenance supervisor in here, and even maybe bug Charlie before he leaves and see, like you said, historically what's been done, what we can realistically do going forward. And yeah, just give me a call. We can talk about it later.
Josh is actually on, and I bet he and Charlie have already discussed this some.
I can add that I've been working with GIS to create a new plowing map book already, hoping that we can capture some of the history, both to bring me up to speed and also maybe in the future make it available to the public too, so that everybody knows currently what's plowed and what's not, so we can avoid driving on the snowmobile trails, which I hear can be an issue up here. And we're going to create a map book out of that. And then I also just talked to somebody at the Forest Service trying to understand what their perspective is. So we're going to kind of start putting that all together and figure out what we've been doing and see if that matches up with what people want us to be doing.
And
I was just going to say thank you. And one of the other opportunities perchance for partnership is just with our local visitors bureau, Visit Cook County, to see if I know some sites have been kind of under and others not. So just another avenue to maybe investigate. Thank you very much for starting to inventory everything like that.
And Commissioner Mills, if I may add, you mentioned the Visitors Bureau. We actually do have arrangements with some entities, and there is one road that occasionally the Visitors Bureau has us maintain in the winter, and we build them. In terms of landing sites and things, historically, as I understand it, most of them have been for public use, and the majority are on either county roads or something like the grade where we have a specific cooperative agreement with the Forest Service. We don't typically plow, say, to someone's private business on a Forest Service road or anything like that. So I know Kristen knew that was an issue that would come before the board probably before winter. She did mention that when she left. So.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Maybe this could be added as a starting point to the public safety and transportation agenda, not the one tomorrow, obviously, maybe the next one. It might require some committee work because there will be hurt feelings because some of these access points are private and some are businesses. And my experience is the business owners are the most vocal ones for wanting their areas plowed. So it's not an easy answer. Thanks for trying to address it, Lisa.
Okay, any other questions, comments before we go on in the agenda? I again want to thank the Highway Department, especially you, Lisa, and welcome to our new leaders in that department, and really look forward to working with you. And we had some real good dialogue as an introduction, working together. So I hope we can continue in that way. And it's very promising times for us and very difficult times, but this department has done well, and I think we're going to anticipate and hopefully support you in continuing that way. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Yeah, and obviously Lisa's in charge right now, so direct all your questions to her.
No.
No, thank you. Our lines are always open. Give us a call.
Good. Okay, thanks so much again.
Have a good day.
Yes, you too. Okay, we'll move on to our assessor with a tax abatement policy update. We have with us Bob Thompson. So Bob, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So this is an update to our abatement policy. It's the last time we had it reviewed was in November of 2009. This is kind of under the recommendation of the Department of Revenue. I was looking back at the previous office appointment reviews, and it looks like when Teddy was appointed back in 2013, I think it was 2012 or 2013, it was okay. In 2014, they were looking for a little bit additional information, a definition of a hardship and explanation of the process for abatements over $10,000. So in 2016, they were asking for an updated version of it, and you know, we finally are getting around to doing that. I know we've processed quite a few abatements this year already. We've had, you know, a couple of fire abatements from downtown, and then we had a number of homestead application abatements, which after taking a look at our current policy, which is attached in the packet, I can pull that open here. I'll start sharing my screen. The current policy was basically saying that we needed to approve those abatements, and we're kind of cleaning some language up in that. So this is the current abatement policy. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look over the draft copy of 2020, but I worked with Attorney Hicken and Auditor Powers. We feel like we've addressed all of the concerns that you know an abatement policy should address. And in addition to those two recommendations from the Department of Revenue, there's really only one part of this that would require some board discussion, and I guess you know, someone make a motion on something, but I'll kind of go through. Do you want to go through this verbatim, or do you want me to just touch on it? A lot of it's really boilerplate, and I can kind of give you the highlights of it.
Okay, let's, I'll just say this is just going through the highlights of it sufficient, Commissioners? I'll just sort of give me a nod. Okay.
And
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead with sort of a summarized
Yeah,
presentation.
so on the first page here, it's all the, the whereases and the therefores. We needed to adopt this abatement policy so that everyone's treated consistently and fairly. Kind of just laying out our policy for various situations. And then also describing what the process is for an abatement that's over $10,000. The reason for that is that it's going to affect those referenda, like the school and hospital. So we would have to give the city and the school district notice on those abatements if we ever get anything. I don't recall ever having one over 10,000 yet, but it's not to say it couldn't happen. And then, so we also, in the first line or in the first page here, it talks about the county board delegating authority to the county assessor and county auditor to administratively approve homestead abatements. So I'll talk about that because the very last paragraph of the policy kind of addresses that again. So we may be kind of wordsmithing this depending on the discussion. So basically, we're going to be laying out what a hardship is in this policy. That's what part of what the Department of Revenue's recommendation was, is that we didn't have a definition of a hardship, and it's on the very bottom. Starts on the very bottom of page 1 here. Examples of a hardship include, but are not limited to, a documented tragedy during the applicable time period, such as an extended medical condition, full-time military service out of the state, death of a property owner or a member of the family, fire or accident, which prevents the property owner from filing a timely appeal. We also do lay out, that a financial hardship is not a hardship, so that wouldn't constitute an abatement. The next part of it, we added some language about denying a homestead or other abatement for applications. So if we sent out a letter for a homestead verification and we sent out a second notice and we didn't get a response, we would no longer be approving these abatements under this policy, which I think we did have a couple this year that, because they were able to prove that they had utility bills and driver's license, or that they were occupying these going back 2 years, that we were approving those abatements. So this is just kind of trying to clean up some of the language, and this is pretty consistent across county policies in the state. And then also the number 5 there is going into applications for things like a seasonal resort, seasonal restaurant on a lake. We haven't had any problems with that. Typically, we do send out our notices and we get pretty good feedback on those, because that tax rate is obviously quite beneficial if it's something like a seasonal resort versus commercial, or a seasonal restaurant versus commercial. So we haven't had a lot of problems with approving or getting a lot of abatement applications on those type of reapplications, those where they're required to file every year. But we have more so on the homestead applications, which, there's sometimes a lot of gray area of whether or not we should be approving or shouldn't be approving. And, that authority has been delegated in the previous policy to the auditor and assessor. So if it's just a current year homestead abatement, me and Brady could process that, look at it, review the facts, and approve it. If it goes back more than 1 or 2 years, then we have to bring it before the board. And that was one of the ones we did at the meeting on August 4th, or the meeting just before the August 4th meeting. We did a homestead abatement going back 2 years, and they were residents. I mean, they were members of the church. I know Jenny knows them. So that's kind of, the main things that we fixed and cleaned up in this. We also had to describe, and one of the things I want to point out here is we may need to wordsmith the very last sentence, or the second to last sentence of this policy. No, it's going back further than that. But we need to give notice 20 days prior to, from what I understand, we need to give notice to the school district and the town and the city 20 days prior to the board's review of that $10,000 application. So I don't know if Molly is available right now. We can kind of talk through this. The administrative abatement approval, the board can delegate. Currently, the way we have this written up, it would just be the same as our current policy, that Brady and I have the authority to approve a current year homestead abatement. If you guys wanted to try and save time on future board agendas, you could say any abatement for the current year up to, say, $500, or any abatement for the current year, say, up to $1,000. does not need board approval. It could be administratively. The statute says anything up to 10,000 doesn't have to go before the board. They can delegate that authority to the auditor, which would still require auditor and assessor approval, but basically be administratively processed by the auditor's office rather than going before the board. The only reason they have that $10,000 number is because you have to notify the schools then. So that you couldn't just administratively approve. And I believe the 20 days is to give them enough time to, you know, give their input to the board on the abatement and if it may affect them negatively. So that's, I guess, what I would hand it back to you as the chair to open it up for discussion on.
Sure.
Would you like to see this policy cover more than just the current year homestead abatements in an effort to try and save future board time?
So, and that's as it is presented, correct?
Right now, it's presented the exact same way as like what the current policy authorizes us to approve current year homestead abatements.
Okay. All right, and a lot of these are just according to statute, correct? From the Department of Revenue and by law. Okay. Let's open it up for any questions or comments in regards to what he's seeking from us. We possibly could take action on this today, and there's some opportunity here maybe for some wordsmithing. So from what I can gather with this presentation. So I saw a hand up from Commissioner Mills, so we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, in my short time on the board here, I haven't found abatements to be too onerous with our time. I would be comfortable, you know, having the authority with the assessor and auditor, but at this point in time, I don't see the need to change things in that way. And if it to that point, we can always update the policy then. So I appreciate the suggestion and the potential, you know, looking ahead that it could be more of an issue, but to this point, I don't see it as an issue, and I'm pretty happy with the policy that you've written up here and meeting the statutory requirements. I appreciate your work there, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mills. Any other comments, questions? I'll go to, okay, I don't see any up, so I guess I would entertain a motion to adopt this as presented and written. Yeah. Assessor Thompson, do you want any more input in that?
I just want to ask Molly's opinion on that. It's like the very last 3 sentences. I just got to pull it back up here so I know exactly what it says. It says, if the abatement exceeds, it's the bottom of the second to last page. It says, if the abatement exceeds $10,000, the affected school district and city township must be notified to respond within 20 days of the abatement request. I believe it should read that the school and township should be notified 20 days prior to the abatement being heard at public hearing. I think that's what the intent is there. It says we're supposed to give them 20 days notice.
Mr. Chair and Assessor Thompson, that part about the 20 days notice can be found on page 1, just a couple paragraphs down below the now therefore paragraph. It says abatements over $10,000 require the county board give 20 days notice of the abatement application to the school board and to the city of Grand Marais. So it is on page 1 if that's sufficient, but if you'd like to move it to page, is it 4? The second to last page, we can work on wordsmithing it.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I see it in both places, and to one, it says requires a 20-day notice, and one, it says requires them to respond within 21 days. So we could just take it out of the last paragraph and just keep it at that front. I think what the intent was is that the policy technically starts about halfway down page 1 or a little over halfway down page 1.
Mm-hmm. The most consistent language, the language that's most consistent with the statute is the language on page 1. And if you wanted to take out the language that you just read, that could certainly eliminate confusion.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So then let's clarify that we will be removing that sentence, if abatement, at the end, if abatement exceeds $10,000, the affected school district and city township must be notified to respond within 20 days of the abatement request. We would strike that from the presented document, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so with that, I think then I would ask for a motion with that understanding that we would provide this as an update and take action on it.
Mr. Chair, with that, and I guess Assessor Thompson and Attorney Hicken, with that striking of the sentence, if abatement exceeds 10,000, the affected school district and city township must be notified to respond within 20 days of the abatement request. The following sentence, the county board can approve or deny that abatement after the 20-day period has expired, should probably also be stricken as well, for consistency. So just wanted to point that out, if that makes sense for everyone.
Okay, Assessor and Attorney, is that correct? Strike
I
out
agree
the
with that.
sentence as well. Thank
Yeah,
you,
agree.
Mr. Mills, for catching that.
Yep. Well,
Okay, so now we're striking those two sentences.
yeah, and I'll make a motion to approve this policy with the striking of those two
Okay.
sentences.
Support?
Storlie, support.
Okay. Very good. We'll do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to request for conditional use permit to establish a duplex in the FAR3 zone district. We have Mr. Lane with us, I believe, to present that. Correct? Bill, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great, great. This is kind of a spontaneous video and microphone setup here. As mentioned, this was a conditional use permit request brought to the Planning Commission on August 12th by Kelly and Chelsea Pusk. Their request is pretty simple. It's to establish a duplex in the FAR3 zone district. A duplex is identified as a conditional use permit in the FAR3 zone district. There was really little discussion on behalf of the Planning Commission, effectively because everybody recognizes that this is a potential another resource for the long-term rental dilemma that Cook County finds itself in. The Pusks purchased their property in 2019. Formerly, under previous ownership, it was granted a conditional use permit as a bed and breakfast operation. So the transition over to a duplex is pretty easy in that the proposed duplex apartment is already blocked off from the main residential area. It's a relatively isolated property with topography, which is going to at least defer some of the potential conflicts with another property user on the parcel and that sort of thing. So the Planning Commission's overall approach was that this was a good idea and it would help to resolve some of the issues in Cook County. And the Pusks have done everything they can to do this as a assimilable operation. And so the Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve and recommended that the Board of Commissioners echo their vote with approval.
Okay. With that, any questions or comments? I think I can see everyone, so you could raise your hand of the commissioners. I don't see anything, so I think we could go ahead with a motion to accept this change as recommended.
Motion to approve, Doo-Kirk.
Thank you, Commissioner Doo-Kirk. Do we have support?
Support, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, Roll call vote. Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very
Bill.
much.
Bill, have you talked to Kelly and Chelsea? They were a little confused. They didn't realize it had to go to the county board for final approval.
I had email communications with them at the end of last week. So
Okay,
I
good.
think this should be, I'll get back to them and let them know.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, very good. We'll go to maintenance, and we have with us our maintenance director. Thank you for joining us, Brian. First item is Gardner temperature controls estimate. I'll turn it over to you this time.
Yes, our system was upgraded about 20 years ago, and we had a grant and we changed over to this new Honeywell system, but it is no longer supported, as you know, things happen like that. So Kirk and Keeshan asked me to get a price to have it updated so it would work with our server. As you see, the price is $5,474. There's money in the building fund to do this. I recommend that we do it.
Okay. Any questions on this project? Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
I really wish Brian wouldn't be so long-winded in his presentations.
Brevity is sometimes a gift. Yes, thank you. Any Commissioner Storlie?
Yes, thank you. It's probably hard to get a lot of bids on a project like this. Gardner seems to be the one that does quite a bit. So did you receive any other bids?
No, they are the ones, it is their system. To
Okay.
go to a different system like Johnson Controls or something like that, it would be many thousands to change the whole.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anything else? With that, entertain a motion to approve
So moved, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
and a support.
Storlie support.
Okay, very good. Roll call vote. Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian. We'll go on to comfort view estimate. Nice names.
That's for the jail. When we replaced the windows this winter, we've found that the insulation in the walls has dropped down out of place. It's cold in there. We have frost around the outlets. I've tried to insulate from the inside out. It just doesn't work. So I got a hold of this company. I tried about 4 different companies. This is the only one that I could get a bid from. And it's a bunch cheaper than what I thought it would be. I was thinking it was going to be around 50,000. But as you see, it's 15,592, which I think is very reasonable. And I think we should go ahead with it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think this last winter, no, 2 winters ago, I went up there during the winter and couldn't believe some of the temperatures in some of those offices and work areas. It was, I think this is long overdue from my point of view. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Is this insulating the entire building?
No, it's just where the bricks are on the, it would be the east side, the north side, and the south side. Around the cells and everything, that is a 2-foot solid filled cement block.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Commissioner Mills?
I'm not familiar, and I guess if I had been at the building committee, I would know more, but I'm just not familiar with the system, and it does seem too good to be true. Can you explain a little bit more about how it works, how they can actually insulate everything, you know, with it being in place already?
sure. What they're gonna do is about between 4 and 6 feet at the top of the roof line, they're gonna pull out a couple of bricks. And then they're gonna shoot this rodent repellent insulation in there, and then they look with a camera and watch how it fills up. If they can do every 6 feet, that's the best, but they may have to go like 4 feet.
And so is this a foam or is this like a loose fill?
It's a loose fill.
And so I'm sorry, the bid is for, is the bid anticipating 4 feet potentially, or is it just for 6 feet?
Actually, I believe he said that it was for the 6 feet.
Yeah. So it could end up being more. Well, you often it works that way.
Right. But he said if it was at the 4 feet, it wouldn't add to the cost.
Oh,
They
okay.
can actually do it. It's just a little bit more brickwork.
I see. Yeah, same amount of insulation, same amount of fill, just more removal. Okay. And then I do notice that it doesn't include putting it back together. So would that be you guys, your department?
I've talked to a couple of people that were gonna come and give me an estimate for putting the bricks back in, but actually the one person didn't show up yesterday, so I'm still working on that part of it. I don't foresee that being a lot. And if it came down to it, I think Jimmy and I could do it.
Yeah, I hate to put more on your plate, but yeah, it's okay. And then just one last question. I don't know if you'll know this answer, but just in the, it gives the square footage and it says 3rd floor. Is that a typo or is that just a way for them to calculate things or?
That has to be a typo. I guess I didn't catch that.
Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah, that'd be great if this helps the issues in that building. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve this project.
I'll make the motion, Commissioner Mills.
Okay.
Support, Commissioner.
Very good. Motion by Commissioner Mills, support by Commissioner Doo-Kirk. Roll call vote. Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie.
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian, for all you do and getting a lot of work done during this COVID thing, and that's very much appreciated to you and your staff. Please pass that on to your staff.
All right, thank you.
Now we'll go to auditor, starting with a septic loan. Auditor Powers.
Mr. Chair, is Bev Wolke, I believe, is in the commissioner's room. Are you there,
Yes.
Bev?
Yeah,
So-
I'm on Zoom also.
Bev manages septic loans,
Okay.
and she'll make the presentation request.
Okay. Oh, good, Bev. Thank you for joining us. I've
Everybody.
seen you here. Yeah. Thanks for all you do.
Pardon?
Thanks for all you do.
Oh, well, thank you.
Another thing I learned that you do.
Yeah. One of many. So, yeah, I'm here to talk to you about a septic loan. It's for Jeremy and Kate Kim Keeble. They own the Hungry Hippie Hostel. And they are replacing a non-compliant septic system out at the hostel. The cost came in at $76,700. I buffered it a little bit and padded it at $79,700, just in case for any unforeseen circumstances. Normally for a business, our cap is at $50,000, where we have to come and get an approval from you. And so I am here to ask you to approve this one also.
Okay, and we have a hand up, Commissioner Kirk.
So Bev, what does this do to your septic loan budget? Because I know we only have so much in there and we go through it quickly.
Last year, I went to a septic meeting and I spoke to the administrator that I work through. I told him that I had a very large one coming in. That one ended up not, they found other ways to pay for it, so they didn't actually use this loan. So I have the extra money now because that one fell through. So we're still good with money using this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Just a reminder, they pay for this on their property taxes?
They do. It's considered a loan in this process. Once we pay the contractor, that loan turns into a special assessment. And the special assessment is then put onto the property tax. And that loan / special assessment stays with the property. It doesn't follow the owner. If something were to ever happen where they decided to sell the place, it stays with the property.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Entertain a motion. Oh, Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, it's just, I'm really grateful and thankful for the work on this, Bev, and it's such a wonderful service that the county can offer to help residences and businesses pay for these older failing systems that are in non-compliance. And I hope people are aware of it. And I think anyone who talks in land services and has some of these issues are made aware of it. And thank you for your work, Bev. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
We're in contact with a lot of the contractors. So the contractors also spread the word for us too.
Okay, very good. It's a very good service.
Mr. Chair, I'll just add that we have to thank the state also because they front the money on this.
Okay.
And yeah, we make an initial payment, they pay us back, and then we use that money from the taxes to pay the state back. They do this all over the state. And for our size, we're one of the largest users for a company size.
Makes sense. Yeah, I could understand that. Okay, are we ready for a motion to approve this loan?
no move, Commissioner Mills.
Okay,
Support.
Okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie,
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye, passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Bev, for your work and joining us today.
Thank you.
We'll go to item B under auditor schedule. Public hearing to consider the establishment of a subordinate service district. And we got a PDF in there and we have to set a public hearing date. So Auditor Powers, I'll turn it over to you. Any further information on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is up on Poplar Lake. It's the Little Ollie Road and Poplar Creek Drive are the proposed roads to be maintained. They're have been maintained by oh shoot, memory's gone. Anyway, by locals up there, and but now not possible anymore. So they need this help. They're looking for this service from the county. And what you have attached there is a map of the proposed service district. So the district itself surrounds Little Ollie, and these are the 14 properties that would be in the district, and the roads then come from the Gunflint to those properties. And in order to have a subordinate service district, the first step then is to have a public hearing. So today is just to set a date for that public hearing. That group association has requested to do it as soon as possible, which would be September 8th. So as soon as we could set that potentially on September 8th at something reasonable like 9 o'clock would work for them. And then after holding the public hearing, then we could approve it at that time. So you could approve it all at the same meeting after the public hearing, or it could extend if there are questions. It's a pretty contiguous district without too many issues. So I'll prepare a resolution for that meeting in the event we're ready to approve it at that time.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? Yes, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Well, our last subordinate service district was pretty contentious. It'd be nice to have some more information on all the homeowners on this. And the Planning Commission asked that we not do things like this during COVID. I know it's important for the homeowners to move forward and that it takes the highway department a lot of time to get everything in place, and that just because we have a public hearing and approve it, that doesn't mean that plowing starts the week after it's approved. And so I have a lot of concerns about holding a public hearing on a new subordinate service district during COVID when we're not meeting in person.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I will say that the group has already formed a loose, I don't know if they're illegal, but a loose association. And they voted for a spokesperson, Sarah Kempinen, who will be at the public hearing on September 8th, if you set it on that date. And it includes, they've contacted all of the people within the district, and all are asking for and are in favor. There's one property that wishes not to be included, and they actually are not part of this association at the time because the Little Ollie Road was extended out to the final property on the point. If you're looking at the map, that's the Conroy property. And so it goes through the Morrison property, and they've not paid their share on that road construction, so they're not part of the association. So that's really the only question in this district. The other 14 are in favor and have actually voted in a spokesperson to represent them.
Okay.
So just a little pre-information for the public hearing.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Brady. Yeah, I had similar concerns as Commissioner Doo-Kirk, and considering the past couple subordinate service districts and the contention there, and so you know, time will tell if any more controversy comes with it. But I feel like as we get more familiar with this process, and that we have you know, a regular process in place, that that we're getting better with it and able to hear more of concerns and better outreach. And I'm pleased to hear that this group has been pretty unanimous or more cohesive and already has the representative elected, and I think that well. But you know, when the comments start coming in, I guess we'll know a lot more about the particulars there, and we can navigate that as time comes on. So
okay.
And I have to just say my memory has returned while I'm listening to you speak, and I apologize profusely if Ted Young is listening or anyone who knows him. That's the name I was trying to come up with. Ted has done the plowing on these roads for, I don't know, decades probably, but he's, you probably know some of you know his recent history. He's unable to continue, and that's where this request came from.
Right, it's something that is sort of immediate for this winter as well. Okay, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Storlie.
Thank you. I think we should give them a chance to come forth, and they have the representative of Sarah. So I think they sound and seem quite organized, and let's hear them out.
Okay. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion in to schedule this for September 8th.
I'll move to schedule it September 8th at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, I think Brady, did you say 9 o'clock or 9:30? It doesn't matter. I think 9:30 is fine.
I think either one of those are.
Okay, very good. Just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Storlie support.
Okay, very good. So let's do a roll call on that. Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie.
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim, aye, passes unanimously. Okay, we'll go to our administrator, and our first agenda item is the travel reimbursement for administrator candidate interviews. And turn it over to you, Rena Rogers, for some information. I know you've been working on this a little bit.
So,
Give us an update.
sure. So at our last meeting, you guys tabled this discussion to this meeting to have a further discussion about whether or not you wanted to reimburse travel expenses for the executive candidates, or if you do want to reimburse, at what level. The only comments that I would make to is that two of the candidates are coming from out of state. I believe one's coming from Missouri and the other one's coming from Michigan. And the other thing that we have done, which is pretty minimal actually, is we were able to reserve a block of 4 rooms at the Best Western for the 2 nights, the night before and the night after the interviews. And depending on what you decide, that would either be paid by the county or partially by the county or by the candidates themselves. But we did do that because it's been such a hectic summer, and there've been so many issues with room availability. We went ahead and were able to schedule that block of rooms. And beyond that, I think it's really up to you, and we'll communicate through Gary Wires, whatever your decision is.
Okay, and I think some discussion has been sort of ranging from doing nothing to having some kind of stipend or actually paying for expenses. So it's the whole range, and maybe since we have 2 from out of state and 2 within the state, it's sort of a little different there. But I'll just open it up for suggestions at this point in time and express your view as what we think would be appropriate. Commissioner Doo-Kirk, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
What we've done in the past is cover moving expenses. So if one of these candidates is selected, we can help compensate expenses on that end. But there's no way we should be covering for them to come. When you apply for a job, you know where the job is and you know that you need to get there. So the outreach that I've had from constituents and our own staff is absolutely not. This is insane.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Commissioner Mills?
Commissioner Doo-Kirk, do you know how much the moving expenses come to?
Well, interesting enough that during one of the times we had a commissioner who hated our choice for who we were picking, even though they voted for them, and they tried to do their dang best to not give them any money at all. So, you know, Brady could talk about it. Both of them had moving expenses covered. It's part of the negotiating and offering the job, but it all depends on who's on the board at the time that the job is offered. So, and the personalities involved.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Mills?
I don't know if you're able to look at those numbers, Brady, but it could help add to the conversation. You know,
Yeah, I can't right now, sorry. I don't have access to the financial at the moment.
That's okay. That's okay. I didn't expect it. I was going to buy you some time, but that's okay. Where I'm coming from is that I want to get the best candidate we can into the position, and so I would like to encourage as much as we can our chances and the pool. And so, you know, whereas expenses, you know, for an individual can get to be substantial, especially traveling out of state. And yes, they are aware of where the position was. You know, as far as our travel costs have been concerned during this pandemic, they've been nothing. And so I feel like with some of those savings, we can help improve our chances with candidates and encourage them to you know, come and let us evaluate them and interview them. And so I'm open to it and think it's a good idea, recognizing that it hasn't been done in the past. But I'm not always impressed with everything boards have done in the past, and so that's kind of where I'm like, well, what more can we do? What can we do to encourage applicants?
Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
If you want to encourage applicants, then we needed to do that a year ago, not now. We already have the applicants. If you wanted to encourage more people to apply and travel, then that should have been a discussion we had a year ago, but we have the applicants who are willing to come. So it's a little late.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Storlie?
Yes, well, I think that if we offer a fig leaf out there and in terms of appreciation for the people coming, I would say that we could maybe cap off the moving expenses depending upon, if they're coming from Middle America versus, another area. But I agree with Commissioner Mills. We want the best. And I think if it would be an incentive, then I would be in favor of some type of moving expenses. Depends upon what Brady can come up with in terms of the past two that have been done.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
So are we reopening the application and letting new applicants know that we're now covering travel? Because if we want the best and we want to get the best by offering an incentive, then don't we repost the position? I'm confused.
Okay, I'll just comment on that, and then I'll go to Commissioner Mills, or I'll go to you, Commissioner Mills, first, and then I would like to comment on travel versus a stipend for coming for interviews. I look at them as two different processes, and it's quite common to pay these things, at least in the fields that I've worked in. But then again, things are unique here too. Commissioner Mills, any further comments from you?
Yeah, no, I don't think we should reopen the application process. We're in it, and we've selected finalists. The reason I'm thinking we should, continue to encourage is because we don't have somebody hired yet, and so until we do, I want to continue to encourage everyone to participate as best we can to increase our chances at getting the best candidate that we can. And so it's a continual process until we have that hire. And when we do have the hire, I want to encourage and support the hire to stay here. And so it's not, we did it and now it's over. It's a continual encouragement and support. And I think that's how we're going to make our county organization stronger, is to continually support and encourage our employees and potential employees. So it is worth, I think it's an excellent point that that we could advertise this option before the application process. But I guess that's another discussion entirely.
I would just, okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk, I'll let you reply.
By the candidates accepting the second interview, they understood that they would have to travel. We're making assumptions and we're spending money we don't need to spend.
I would just like to comment again, how to continue with the previous one. I look at it as it's part of one process, but there are two phases to that. There is the interview process. And I think that if you have some kind of stipend, at least lodging paid or mileage, you're sending the message that we appreciate you applying, and it starts off the relationship, whoever may be selected, in a very positive way. I think the amount of money could be very worthwhile because it's not that significant. Maybe it is to some people, whether it's $500 or not, but I think it sends a message of good faith and professionalism. And the moving expenses are typically done when someone's hired. And you do that as part of your contract negotiations and securing that person to take the position or not. So I see them as two different processes. And here again, I come from a world where this was quite common. In fact, very common, that when you had finalists, there was expenses paid full, but they don't need to be. But it's just, I think it's a messaging thing. And it certainly introduces us in a good faith way. Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
I agree with you, Myron. It is common practice, but it's common practice at the front of the process. It's common practice at the very beginning to say, we want the best of the best. And in order to do that, we are going to cover travel and mileage, not to pick a slate. And then after we pick the slate, say, oh yeah, some of them are out of town, so we're going to pay for it. And we just hired a department head who was not living in the state of Minnesota, and we didn't offer to them to cover travel for them to come to an in-person interview. And so are we going to do that going forward with every key position we have in the county, is to pay for travel? I mean, we're creating a huge thing here.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I want an answer as to whether we're going to pay the last department head who just started and wasn't given the option of travel to come to an interview. And are we going to do it forward?
Yeah, I think that's after the fact of before the interviews, and could have been done part of that process, but I think we've got hiring practices there. My comment, I guess, is and thought is that this is our interim administrator. And whether we do this or not is the issue. I don't see that as opening it up unless we want to adopt a policy going forward. But I don't think we can go retroactive on something for another department. And then how deep do you go with that? I'd say that could be a policy decision in the future, but I think right now we're addressing this specific position. And we as the board are the interviewers and part of that process. So I understand what you're saying, but I feel this situation is a little bit different from the standpoint of where we're at now.
So going forward, we're going to pay for people to come to an interview.
No,
because if we do this,
the administrator, this process is separate and we're dealing with it now. All I'm saying is that our decision with the administrator is dealing with that and not previous decisions or previous interviews going back for how long. I'm
going back 2 weeks ago. I mean, this is just silly. I mean, we're opening the gate.
I'm aware that's your understanding of it, and I respect that. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I guess I haven't been involved with the interview process of other positions, but it is a practice that I think we should explore if we do want to get the best candidates that we can get. And to me, this option isn't because there are candidates from out of state. The option for me is because I want to encourage and support candidates that we have chosen as finalists. And so for the individuals that are from further away, it certainly does have a bigger impact on them individually. And I think this position is unique because it is the one that we are fully overseeing in its versus having a hiring committee and you know, the work of that smaller group.
Okay, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
I agree with you, Dave. It should be part of the hiring process. I'm just saying where we're doing it now is crap. It should have been done at the beginning. It should have been offered at the beginning to get a better pool. And the people that have agreed and accepted without this offer, they are coming, whether we give them compensation or not. None of them have asked us for compensation. They are coming. They agreed, they accepted to move forward in the process and do an in-person interview.
Commissioner Mills?
So I understand, Commissioner Doo-Kirk, are you saying there should be no expense coverage?
Maybe if we have to do another round of interviews because they're not prepared for that and that wasn't the part of process, maybe since there's 4 of us, there's not a dividing vote. Maybe we come to a 2-2 vote and it comes down to 2 candidates and we just can't split hairs over it and we want to interview them again. I am all game. If we have to do a second interview and put these people out longer and take longer, game in, it's recorded. I see the little button on, it's recorded. Heidi is saying if we have to do another interview after this one, I'm okay with talking about it. But right now, they're all in. They all agreed to come whether we compensated them or not. And so not at this point of this game.
I would just like to add that we were going to have this decision made at our meeting and we delayed it to this meeting. And that's why we're facing it now, because we couldn't seem to come to an agreement at that time when we would have notified people. At least that was my understanding. So this is delayed decision because we couldn't reach any kind of consensus. And I think we're just running out of time at that. So, we got a real range here of how people view this situation and the consequences or not thereof. Commissioner Doo-Kirk, you had your hand up again.
You're right. We did not come to an agreement and we had a hard time coming to agreement then. And if they were watching, they knew when they accepted to continue that we were not in agreement for compensating them to travel for this interview.
I would just comment, my last comment would be that this is a gesture of good faith and that we appreciate them applying and that we're willing to do some kind of offer for help with expenses, which is quite common, I believe, at least for these types of positions. Okay, well, we're, yeah, Commissioner Storlie.
Well, I've been listening to the conversation here and they have rooms, so that's a good benefit. And if we want to entertain some type of stipend that they could use for gas or flying or whatever to get here, that would be a goodwill gesture. If we continue on with having a second round, then we'd have to look at how we would provide something else or not. But I think we need to think about the goodwill. And I don't know exactly what Commissioner Doo-Kirk is referring to, that they would already know in their acceptance of coming here that there was any type of commitment from us. How do we know that?
Okay, Rita Rogers had your hand up first for comment, so I'll call on you at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Storlie, I just wanted to clarify that we reserve the rooms, but depending on the decision that's made today, that would determine who paid for it.
I thought that was understood. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, so I'm going to have one more comment, and then I think if that's all right, we'll try to move this forward. And so Commissioner Doo-Kirk, I'll call on you.
This goes back to why I disagreed with our policy discussion, because Ginny specifically had a question for me and you went to Rena instead of me. Ginny, what I'm saying is when these candidates agreed to come here in person for their interview, they knew they were coming here without any compensation from the board. That's the answer to the question.
Okay, let's see if we can move on, and I will open it up for a motion, and we'll go ahead with that. So Commissioner Doo-Kirk, you had your hand up.
Yep, I'll make the motion to not provide any compensation.
Okay, do we have support? Do we have support? Okay, motion fails for lack of support or second. Open it up for any other motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I hesitate to make a motion because I don't feel like I have a very thorough understanding of what costs could be. We could do it piecemeal, but I would like to be consistent. I don't know if candidates are considering flying, if they're considering driving. And during a pandemic, I think both of those options are tricky to navigate. So I guess one thing that I am clear on is that we have rooms reserved, and so we need to decide whether or not we pay for those or candidates pay for those. And so what I would like to make a motion on to start is that we pay for the rooms that are reserved, and I would want to take that out of the commissioner's budget from our travel costs that have not incurred.
Okay, so that's a motion at least. And to understand your motion a little bit, this does not preclude any other considerations for reimbursement.
Correct.
Okay, very good. We have a motion, and thanks for the clarification. Do we have support?
Storlie, support.
Okay. Comment, Commissioner Doo-Kirk.
We don't even know if they already have arrangements. Maybe they have family here.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Mills?
My understanding is there's enough time between now and the interviews that we can cancel the rooms and we can communicate. If this motion is approved, we can reach out to with the offer, and if there are other arrangements made, or if they do have relatives, then that's something we don't need to follow through on there.
Yeah. My understanding with Best Western is that they will accept a cancellation if they don't prefer to stay in a room or something else. Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
I'm looking at fairness. So if someone has the ability to stay with family, they get no compensation. I mean, why don't you just put out a dollar amount and they can apply that towards their room or their flight or their food or something else? Because if 2 candidates need a hotel and 2 don't, then 2 get extra compensation.
Well, it's an offer. My understanding is that we're doing this not to preclude any further action on how we deal with a stipend, from my understanding. So with that, more comment, and then I would like to call for a vote. Yes, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to speak to Commissioner Doo-Kirk's concern of fairness, is, you know, I still want to be as responsible as we can with dollars spent. So if it's unnecessary to spend them, or if it does nothing for the encouragement to increase the chances of the best candidate, then we don't need to spend those dollars on the rooms. But if it does help and encourage, then I would very much like to compensate for the rooms. So I don't want to just throw money at them. I want to have specific costs that we can cover for specific costs that candidates incur.
Okay. With that, then, we have a motion to cover the cost of the rooms, subject to cancellation on anyone's part for 2 nights. So roll call vote on that. Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie?
Aye.
Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
Nay.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye. It passes 3-1. The other question then, as chair, I'll throw out, does anyone think we should have some kind of stipend and in addition to this? I would propose that if we go that route, we also could explore an out-of-state expense, out-of-state travel expense versus in-state. But not saying that that should be that way, but it could be an option. But I'm going to leave that up to any commissioner that wants to or does not want to consider a stipend in addition to the rooms. So let's have a discussion on that. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm not clear on the word stipend. Could you explain that a little bit?
Okay, my understanding is it's usually a flat rate. The other way to go is to pay expenses or pay a percent, and then they would document their expenses. I mean, that is an option that they would have to document with receipts their actual expenses, and then we would reimburse them. I threw out a stipend because usually that would mean we're not going to cover everything. But this is wide open. I just threw that out as a suggestion. And so, thank you. As chair, I'll just put the option out, I guess, whether it makes a difference or not, that if someone wants to make a motion to cover all the expenses that are documented, then that's a possibility as well. Okay. Commissioner Doo-Kirk?
And the stipend was my point to the room thing, where we put a specific amount out and then we just let them use it for whatever needs they have.
We've made a decision on the room, so, but thank you for your input.
I understand that you made that decision, Myron, but that was my point, was the stipend. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, thank you.
You know what? You guys have a great day.
Okay. We have now still a quorum, so we'll continue business. Any further ideas, options in regards to should we have a reimbursement beyond the rooms if they choose to, select a room? Commissioner Storlie?
Question would be, if we do a stipend, then we set a figure, $200. What, if we talk about a stipend, what do we all think would be fair?
Okay, I guess my response to that is, and it's only a question, should we have an out-of-state travel or should it just be consistent? And I can go either way. I'm open on this. And we've made a decision on the room, so that's a done deal. But this isn't, does it stop with that, or do we consider some kind of reimbursement beyond that? So open for ideas on that. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I previously said, I don't have a great comprehensive grasp of these costs, and so I'm just trying to, in my mind, parse things out kind of piecemeal to what makes sense, and that's why I made the motion for the rooms. And at this point, I feel similarly with meals, and that hasn't been explicitly put out there. And so under our county travel policy, I would make the motion to cover meal expenses as far as our county travel policy allows.
Okay. Is that again to preclude any other reimbursement or only a single issue?
Only that. I'm trying to kind of parse it out here.
Okay.
Sorry.
So let's take that on. Would you like to make that a motion that we reimburse meals?
That is a motion.
Mhm.
Is there support?
So,
Commissioner Storlie, go ahead.
yes, I support, but I want to ferret out a little bit. So I support it. And then Commissioner Mills, you mean they would turn in their receipts? They would get, as we do, 15, 10, 8, whatever it is. They would return those receipts to us. Yes.
They don't, just a clarification, my understanding is that there's no receipts required for the county per diem, excuse me, meal allowance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be just automatic. I can't remember breakfast, lunch, dinner. I think it's 15, 12 and
Right.
10 or something.
Right.
So that, and so do you support that, Commissioner Storlie?
Yes.
Okay,
And nothing else. That
okay,
would be it.
okay. So, wow, well, that was not in the motion. So Commissioner Mills, are you willing to amend your motion? Her support indicated that this would be the only further reimbursement other than the room. Is that what you meant, Commissioner Storlie?
Well, that's what I'm wondering if Commissioner Mills meant.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, yeah, what I'm trying to do is just work through the expenses and what I think is going to encourage the candidates. And so we've got the rooms covered. I think it appropriate to stick to our county policy as far as the meals are concerned. And we do have the standard rates there, which we may revisit in the future. But for now, we have those in policy. And so that is what the motion was to use those rates in our policy.
Okay.
I'm not, and it's not to say that we won't cover any other costs as far as whether it be mileage or plane tickets. But I'm just trying to break this down parts that we can process or sorry, that I can process.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think I'll just call for the question and we'll vote on that. The motion is to reimburse meals for the number of days involved or part of a day involved according to the county rate, which is published, and I think we can act on that. So I'll call for the vote on that. Commissioner Storlie?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Mr. Bursheim is aye, passes. Okay, so let's open it up on whether we should have some other kind of reimbursement and how do we go about that? We have out of state, in state. We could have a differential there, if not, or not do anything. I mean, this is a separate issue, and I think I really appreciate Commissioner Mills' approach. Let's take this piece by piece and ferret it out a little bit at each level. So any comments or questions, maybe before we entertain a motion or not? Yes, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, we didn't get through the conversation at our previous meeting, but some of the ideas were tossed out there to you know, try to process in our own minds. I didn't know if Interim Administrator Rogers had an opportunity or took any look at potential airfare costs. And I didn't expect you to, but I just didn't know if you did look at that at all.
I did not. You know, I think during COVID, it's even questionable whether people would want to fly. So I didn't. There's so much variation in an airfare cost of, you know, where you're flying from. Is it a small airport, you know, to Duluth versus to the cities? Whether you're flying during the week at night. I mean, I think that's a big variable. You know, and this is my opinion, but the two things you voted on are very controlled, you know, costs. We know exactly what those rooms are going to cost. $179.99 a night plus tax. And we know exactly what the meal reimbursement will cost. The travel is variable, and it's going to show a lot of different variation between candidates.
I would just like to comment, just throw it out for an idea. I'm not advocating for this at all, but just to get some reaction to it. But maybe a fair way to go is they would calculate their mileage no matter how they got here, because we have a standard mileage rate. and that each candidate could calculate their distance to Grand Marais to stay here from their destination, and then to go back, and that would be somewhat commensurate to the distance, whether they fly or not. And it would be some kind of standardized way of going about this rather than a flat rate. I just throw that out for a suggestion. Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did a quick little Google here. And just as a rough idea, if we are looking at flights, and I'm not looking at a calendar really accuracy, but it looks like at this point it's $100 one way.
To Duluth?
No, I guess I didn't. I don't know how they came up with that. Let me just plug that in. But it was about 700 for the furthest candidate. It looks like it's 790 miles. So if we did our standard rate, that would be $460. For the mileage. But now I just plugged it in for the Duluth airport, and it looks like one way is $178. So that gives us something to go with, that it's around, actual costs could be $400 to $500 for the furthest candidate. So if we wanted to do it just based on costs so that we're covering the costs, then that's in that, somewhere in that range. And this might be a situation where we do just want to have either the receipt or the mileage, as you said, could be an option. I don't know, but I just wanted to. I'm trying to flesh this out a little bit.
Okay, it's Commissioner Storlie. What are your thoughts about that approach? And what I'm hearing you saying is that we could reimburse the airline costs and mileage costs by driving as a fair way to reimburse them for their travel expenses.
Well, would we reimburse them totally or do a percentage?
That's,
option.
Yeah, well, I
go ahead, Commissioner Mills.
I guess that's up to us, and that's what we're trying to figure out. If we want to do, we'll cover 80%, or if we're going to cover just mileage, or if we're going to cover $400 up to $400 in a flight, or what's appropriate. And to Interim Administrator Rogers' point, flying may not be a responsible way to travel at this point, or candidates. So, is a stipend a sort of thing we can do with receipts, or up to a certain amount, or this is outside of my experience, so I'm trying to figure this out as we go.
If I could just comment, though, you said 790 miles one way for the furthest one. That must be the one in Kansas, or so that comes out to about, $400 some from my estimating. So in Duluth would be a lot shorter, in Minneapolis would certainly be shorter. If we limit it to a certain percentage, that would be fair. But if we went with a strict stipend of, let's say, $300, and just throwing that out, then that would be somewhat inequitable because others would be incurring more expenses. So I guess if we consider less than, I personally sort of like just the mileage rate because that's something that's established, and whether they fly or not, that's their option, but they could calculate their miles and we could reimburse them or entertain a percentage of that. I'm just throwing that out as something to chew on. Excuse my language, figuratively speaking. I'm all around. Okay, Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, if we did just the mileage, for that furthest one, that's gonna be $900. And that's more than that's necessary, I think. And you know, I'm really struggling with this because of the pandemic and because I'm not familiar with airline procedures during this, how safe that is or how much risk there is. But that is certainly more economical, and that's something I still want to respect and keep in mind as we're trying to figure this out.
Let's
Yeah.
open it up for some motions and see how we can deal with this. Are you all game for that? Anyone want to tackle that?
Well, I'm leaning more toward a stipend, I guess. And then they can put it toward flying, driving, motor scooting, whatever. A stipend of, I'll just throw this out, a stipend of $300.
Okay. All right. Do you want to make that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, very good. It's seconded. And then discussion, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner Storlie, is this this is just across the board. One of our candidates is from Superior, and so the costs are significantly lower for them. What do you think about you know, a stipend of up to $300 with receipts? Or I guess there wouldn't be any other receipts if they're coming from Superior. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that we need to pay someone $300 to drive from Superior, I guess is what I'm.
Right, I know. We have the area to consider both near and far.
Right. So it gets, so just a flat stipend is hard for me to really support, even though I did support the motion.
Yeah, right. Well, you go along with mileage too. It's a lot shorter for a couple, and further away, it's more.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can withdraw your motion and we could try to go to another one. Or we can take action on that motion of the $300 stipend.
No, I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
I wonder at this point, we have no precedent, really, that I can recall. I've only been on one hiring committee that we're kind of making a new precedent in the future with some additions or corrections. But getting back to the moving expense, is that something we want to address again for the candidate that's been chosen?
My understanding is that would be part of the negotiations process because that's going to be a big difference for the candidate.
Yes.
So once we get into the contract negotiations, my understanding that moving expenses is always part of that negotiations agreement for consummating the contract. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's off the
my
table.
thinking. So I just like to throw out, well, let's just consider an in-state stipend and an out-state stipend. And let's try to take that approach. So if someone want to take a crack at that, Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, and so I just did a little route from our Michigan candidate as well, and that's actually 760 miles. So it's not all that much shorter. It's very similar distance. For the both out-of-state candidates have a very similar distance, And so I guess what I would, working off of Commissioner Storlie's motion previously, I would move to do an out-of-state stipend of $300.
And in-state?
Well, I'm just parsing it out.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, clarify that for me again. You are stating that it'd be a $300 stipend for out of state.
Correct.
That's motion. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that? Support?
Storlie, support.
Okay. So we have a motion for $300 for out of state travel reimbursement. And we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Storlie?
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim is aye. Okay, in-state. Commissioner Mills?
And you know, to be clear, I'm not. I mean, technically, Superior is out of state, and so, but I was considering that in-state. It's quite close.
Yeah.
But I want that to be clear for.
Okay, good point.
But for the two closer candidates, I would make a motion to cover mileage based on the federal mileage rate, to cover those travel expenses.
Okay, support?
Storlie, support.
Okay, very good. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storlie?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim's aye. Very good. Thank you very much for sticking with it and coming to a very good, I think, compromise of how we can move forward with good faith and goodwill and not at an exorbitant expense at all. Okay. We'll go on to any other updates with our administrator.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So I just want to give you a little bit of an update on how the CARES Act funding distribution is going. So as you may recall, we had received $730,000. The task force, excuse me, is made up of some of our business community as well as human services, public health, and Brady and myself looking at county expenses. We had initially talked about distributing $200,000 to the business community. Again, just kind of a starting point. Stick your thumb out there. 200,000. So the group that's working on that is Jim Boyd, Mary Somnus, and Pat Campanero. They received 50 applications from businesses in round one. Of those, I think about 60,000, they got between about $90,000 in request on the first round. And about 60,000 of those came with receipts, so immediately reimbursable. The remainder were for future purchases where people said, if I were to buy this for my business, remember it has to be COVID related, would you reimburse me? And they got approval for that. So people will be told they can go ahead and purchase that. And when they give receipts, since the receipts in, they'll be reimbursed. They're going to start round two that will go out in mid-September. And it'll be out there from mid-September to mid-October. The first round was for less organizations with less than 10 people. The next one will be for organizations, either they haven't decided yet, between 10 and 20 employees, or maybe they'll just open it up in general. So at this point, that's kind of where the business one is. They're still aiming for the $200,000 amount. In county government, we have been going back and looking through what we spent since March that's not covered by FEMA. And We've submitted a lot of those items from technology point of view, some of the building modifications, PPE, some of those other things. And the journal entries haven't been made yet to move that money. So I don't have an exact number, but at this point, it seems to be in the 50,000 to 100,000 range. So we're underspending there, and I don't know how much more we'll have there. The human services and public health had been sort of separate buckets with a sort of a projected goal of about 150,000 to each one. But at our task force meeting yesterday, they asked if we could sort of consider them together because there's a lot of overlap. I think Allison's crew put aside about $40,000 into sort of a bucket for individual assistance. So they've modified their policies. So the people who are unemployed or who have other issues could basically, if they're falling through the cracks, the policies up there now and their processes would help those people with rent assistance or food assistance if they weren't eligible for other things in a short-term kind of way. They've also invested some in their the community support line and the behavioral health things. The main thing in public health, excuse me, I gotta get a drink of water. As we know, Grace Grenager has put in place some temporary staff to help her with school liaison and some contact tracing. So those temporary contracts through the 1st of December equal about $42,000. So the grants to the community agencies for public health purposes went through the public health advisory, that process they have for granting money to community organizations. And they got requests for up to about $90,000 through that. So they're going to grant all of that money. So we're at about, between the two right now, about 150,000. They're also looking at still about transportation for how we transport people safely, maybe making some plexiglass modifications to some county cars, some other kinds of things. And there's a lot of requests coming, and I think more coming from childcare and daycares, including the Y, as we try to, as a community, figure out how to help families, support their kids when they have when they're working, but they have distance learning. So a lot of stuff going on. I think all of these processes are moving through in a very constructive way. And as we get through the next month or so, we'll know where we're going to underspend, where there might be opportunities, push more money to businesses or maybe to daycare or some of those other needs. So that's the update we promised to give you after a month.
Well, thank you very much. A lot of good work has gone into this and a lot of consideration. I'd like to just open it up for any questions that Commissioner Mills or Commissioner Storlie would have for our administrator. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rena, for the update there. I wasn't totaling everything up, but there have been requests for some of our regional organizations because they haven't been covered under the CARES Act funding. And I didn't know if there's any room or if you foresee any room to help on those fronts. But it's something I'd like to get back. I mean, I recognize their importance and the significance, but I don't want to undercut our own community's needs directly. So I just didn't know if you had any feeling where things might fall there.
Well, clearly we're going to have some extra money. I don't really have a good sense of how much it is right now. So I guess the question is, for some of our regional partners, how much direct, help is that right now? It's always a decision. Do we want that to go directly toward businesses in the county who maybe are struggling? Or do we want it to go to support families and maybe daycare kinds of things? So I think that's certainly we should receive those requests to the task force and look at them. I know that one that you were looking at, or one of the committees you were on, was something about technology that supports job training. So I would like, if I could, I forgot to bring that honestly to the meeting yesterday. I just forgot. But we should take that to the task force, because the people that are at that table, like Pat Campanero, would know how much value we would get out of that as a community. And I feel like that's where we should start. But, if commissioners feel differently, we can certainly, there's some room to play.
Okay, Commissioner Mills.
No, I think that's great. A great way to approach it. I would just ask that you communicate back to any of our regional partners that'll be our approach. But I think that's an excellent approach. I want to make sure we're covering our needs within our county geographically. But I know that those organizations support our county directly. So I want to be able to support them. If we can even legally do that, I don't know how that funding stream, the requirements work there. That's something to consider.
Okay. I would just like to comment on your presentation and really appreciate exploring how we can help families, especially dealing with distant learning and some of those challenges, and definitely help those families where we have on the line workers, that need to work, which I think the Y is doing, so it'd be a great opportunity. And I know that the school, we had some discussion on this last Friday in Y facilities, that the school, we could collaborate on that, ISD, and with like preschool or SAT, which is like a community education function that's jointly done by the Y and the school district. And but that could definitely help, as well as the charter schools, if parents would want another option other than have their child attend school. I don't know if they would have a distance opportunity or not for those to decide not to go. It's going to be could be an interesting thing, especially if things break out further. But I think if we have some more support for the families, that's really good. Commissioner Storlie.
Yes, thank you. Right, I totally agree that we need to look in the community, both with families and businesses, because it's tough, and I appreciate all the avenues that you're looking into. So thank you for that.
Anything else for the administrator? Okay. So commissioner reports under employee concerns, commissioner concerns. Any commissioner reports to share from the two of you, each of you? Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to report right now. Just since our last check-in with Public Health and Human Services meeting, I'm sorry that Commissioner Doo-Kirk left the meeting here. I was hoping to hear a report just about the goings-ons with the Parks and Trails Commission. It sounded like they started to discuss the Passion Pit situation, and I didn't know what happened with that conversation, or I can't imagine there's an outcome, but just about the discussion, and so I guess hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about that in the future here.
I was there for the Passion Pit discussion representing the Historical Society, so I could give you my, I did need to sign off at 7 o'clock, but I think it was pretty much resolved. But there'll be a recommendation coming from the Parks and Trails Commission to form some kind of task force, and that will come to the county board. And from what I can understand, there would be 4 members of that task force representing the city, the county, And Tim Nelson would be ex officio, and then Grand Portage could be the other option. So that is my understanding of the meeting. This is going to be, there was a lot of questions and discussions about the lease issue or purchase issue, and they could, you know, that could be things that are subject to change, you know. So I think we spent a lot of time on it, and I think quite thorough about all the options, and that's my understanding how this will move forward. And then hopefully that task force, I think it was 60 days limitation, that they would come back with some kind of recommendation to the Parks and Trails Commission, which then would go before the county board and or the city, depending upon, you know, the involvement that's needed there. So, but really appreciated the groundwork that Rena Rogers has done on this, and it would have been nice to have you there last night, but we had a lot of discussion on how to proceed. But I think that we can move forward on it, and that's my understanding is a task force will be formed, and it'll come back to the county board for who should be involved in that process. As far as the commissioner, it'd be a commissioner or counselor, or Jay or Aerosmith DeCoo for the city. Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is the Historical Society gonna have a member on the task force as well?
Well, that's an interesting thing. We did, I forgot to mention that I did move to have Stacy Drulard, the at-large member. And it's just because of the work that she's done, working with Rena Rogers, and I know I've met with her as well. Yeah, it was a recommendation from Carrie Johnson, the executive director or CEO of the Historical Society, that there should be definitely someone from the Historical Society. I had sort of proposed that she should be involved in that, but there was some discussion that Carrie did propose, but I don't think it was acted on, that the commissioner that's assigned should have some kind of connection to the Historical Society. So that would bring it together. But I think that'll come back to the board, and I don't want to get into the discussion, but there wasn't complete agreement on what role the Historical Society should have. And so there was a lot of options considered, and some of the dynamics that was going on just were not conducive to refining that a little bit more. And so there was a lot of discussion. But that was a suggestion, definitely, that there, I believe strongly there needs to be that. If we were going to do anything at all regarding statute, with creating some kind of, you know, if we got a lease or a purchase on that land, that if we were going to go through any kind of legal process as a county, it would more than likely have to involve a historical society, because if you get funding or you allocate funding at all through the county government, that is the statute as I understand it. So if we were able to get some funding for historical purposes, the Historical Society has to be involved. And that's by statute. Isn't that correct, Rena? Is that your understanding? Oop, lost Rena.
I don't know.
Okay, but that's the research that I did in regards to the role of the Historical Society.
I don't know.
Became a historical site. So, and that's part of the discussion, should part of this land acquisition become part of a historical society? Then there's a process by statute that you would go through, which would involve a historical society. Okay, I don't know if I answered that, but I think more will be coming and proposed to us as a county board from the Parks and Trail and Tim Nelson could certainly be a good source to consult on how he thinks that's going to go forward. He's going to be the point person as well. He'll be the point person on this task force as well, and that was very important from my point of view,
I would
that we
just
have someone
like to
sub-entity. Go ahead. We're having technical difficulties with.
I was just going to say, my internet here is kind of unstable. I'm on wireless, so if you lose me,
Yeah, okay.
I'll
All
try to
right,
log.
so anything else as far as meetings? Meetings to note, we're going to have the joint powers tonight at 5:30. It'll be by Zoom. And I think those who wish to participate can get on. I think the maximum is 100 from what I know. But we'll be talking about racial inequities and those related issues as involving the school district, the hospital, the city, Grand Portage, I believe, and the county. Those are the people that I believe are attending. And we're going to have representatives from the boards as well as administration, from my understanding. Any other meetings to note? Yes, Commissioner Mills.
No, I don't have another meeting to note, but I just before we wrap up here, I just want to, and I don't know who all is listening or who needs to listen, but I just want to ask our community to remember to be as patient and compassionate as we can during this time. There's so many different things going on, so many changes, and everything is affecting everyone in many different ways. And so I appreciate everyone's hard work, whether it be within the county organization, the county government, or whether it be private business owners and customer service or private contractors or just anyone. I greatly appreciate the work that's being done and the patience and the strength that we can show during these times.
Thank you. And I would just like to add, the COVID, I think, has taught us one thing, and we're going ahead with some really, interesting issues and delicate issues like racial inequity and disparity, as well as, quite frankly, economic disparity, as I mentioned in the beginning of the evening. But I think what COVID has taught me, at least, and it's reinforced my belief that we're all in this together, folks. And we do need to deal with some of these issues because it's going to affect all of us, quite frankly. The pandemic is showing us that each one of us has some kind of value for each other, our health, our prosperity. I hope that we all learn that from this, and I hope we as a county will approach this in that same spirit. Anything else for the good of the order, Commissioner Storlie?
Yes, thank you. If you haven't had a chance to review WTIP, they did a good coverage of Bobby Deschamps's oath in becoming the tribal chair in Grand Portage. He looks very dapper in his ribbon shirt and his medallions, and people who participated in his good news about taking that position. And it's a good coverage and a very nice picture of him.
Good, thank you. We'll have to check that out. Anything else for the good of the order? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Okay, support?
Support.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Storlie.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills.
Aye.
Commissioner Bursheim, aye. Thanks to everyone for tuning in if they have, and again for all the work. We're just so much better to work together. And thanks to everyone for what they do as being part of that.
Thank all of you.
Have a good day, everyone.
You too.